welcome to the Clock End Talk, an Arsenal podcast. You can follow us at clockend_ on Twitter, and you can also get us on Facebook.
What?
What?
That's not all right.
What is it? At clockend _ talk. What did I say?
You said clockend _.
Oh, fuck's sake. Clockend _ talk. I'm on fire today. Anyway, let's welcome Tony. How are you, mate?
Yeah, I think you may have already heard me, but all right, everyone.
And Schwinn, how are you, buddy?
Hello. I'm doing very well. Glad to see you normal duty here zoomed, huh, Taz?
Oh, fuck me, mate. I've had a fucking absolute fucking shocker here. Head's not with it, boys. Head is not with it. Let's get straight into this game because that's probably what's the elephant in the room at the moment. So, Tony, Manchester City. I'm not going to break the game down, boys. I'll just get your thoughts on it because we've got a shitload of questions to get through as well, and I feel that'll probably touch a fair bit on the game as well. So, Tony, what's your takes on everything, mate? We'll start with the lineup and formation.
Yeah, I mean, so the lineup on paper wasn't too far off what was expected. I think most of us probably thought Torreira would play in the place of Guendouzi. I personally didn't think Mkhitaryan would play. I know Schwinn said last week he expected that. But apart from that, I don't think there was any real shocks. I think more how the formation played out when we was on the pitch was really shocking and for me wrong. Ramsey at 10 and Ozil on the wing doesn't really make sense. Ramsey's best asset is his engine, and playing him so high up, you kind of take that away from him. He also stayed really high up, which was very surprising. I thought, in my head, if you're playing Ramsey as a 10, you're still going to utilise his engine for him to get back, but then be able to push on as well. But he was shoulder to shoulder with Aubameyang a lot of the first half, especially. I don't think Mkhitaryan was overly in the game, and I mean, Aubameyang. I don't like him when he's isolated, and he was for a lot of the time yesterday because he's not the greatest link-up man. He's great running the channels. He's got a fair leap on him for long balls, but we didn't play too many of them. I'm sure we'll speak about that a whole lot more later. But I just think when he's isolated, he can't do much. Even if you hit him on the channels and he runs in and gets it first, he's still got to hold the ball for 4 or 5 seconds while the other players catch up with him. And I don't think he's brilliant at doing that. So, as I said, on paper, when I was in the pub before the game and I saw the team sheet, I didn't think there was a lot wrong with it. But the way we set up, I wasn't impressed at all, to be honest.
Schwinn, I'm not going to really ask you much question, mate. I'm just going to get your whole thoughts on your reaction of the game, the results, and what's your take on it, mate?
I was not impressed either. Apart from the lineup that obviously Tony just spoke about, I thought that there were quite a few gaping holes in our game. I mean, for one, when you don't have a true winger on the pitch and you have Mesut Ozil and Mkhitaryan, you don't have a lot of cover. And I thought that on a lot of instances, our fullbacks were way too narrow, or at least that's how it seemed on the telly. Maybe Tony can correct me from what he saw on the pitch. And that led to a lot of gaping holes for players like Kyle Walker, Riyad Mahrez, and Mendy to run into. I mean, I will give some credit here to Mesut Ozil because he had the most amount of recoveries in the game. But when you look at the flip side of his game, attacking-wise, he was absolutely irrelevant. He didn't do any right thing, and you don't expect that from him. You expect him to be more clinical and find those passes. Mkhitaryan as well didn't really contribute a lot in that regard and left Ainsley Maitland-Niles quite uncovered, against very, very high-quality players in Riyad Mahrez and Kyle Walker, who is just blistering with his pace. Ramsey at 10 is a big no-no for me. I don't think it works the way we set up to allow him to succeed. And that obviously led to Aubameyang being isolated. Credit to Mustafi and Socrates. I think they had a decent game from what our expectations are from them. Obviously it wasn't a good game, but it was better than what we hoped, I would imagine, or what we expected, I would imagine. And Lichtsteiner did pretty well. I felt Guendouzi for being 19 and not having the experience, I think he did pretty well. But the 2 instances where he made mistakes, we ended up conceding directly or indirectly. So there's a learning curve there associated with him as well. I know we'll go into detail with Granit Xhaka, so I'm not going to touch upon him just yet. But It's the first game of the season. It's a result we expected, and I don't want to be too negative, but there are certain mistakes, certain issues, and we should go over them because that's what we're here to do.
Yeah, look, and I'm going to start it off with you actually mentioned Socrates. He wasn't too bad, you thought. Now, I'm going to throw this to Tony quickly because I didn't think he was that good, to be honest. I thought when, we're playing out of the back, and when you've got check-in goals, Mustafi, Socrates, I just, from playing out of the back, I just couldn't understand the tactics behind that, Tony. It was like we were shitting ourselves. We were scared, so we just kept going back. What was your thoughts on our defence?
Well, I'm going to start off by saying I wasn't the most pleased with the Socrates signing. I thought there was a lot better out there for probably similar money or maybe 1 or 2 million more. But I actually thought he was quite good yesterday. I agree there was an issue with playing out from the back, but I don't put the blame on him. I don't put it on Cech. If you've got your triangle when you've got the ball, because obviously the centre-back split, if your triangle is Cech, Mustafi and Socrates, you're never going to be brilliant playing out from the back. So if they're being told to do that, that's not their fault. And then they're doing it to the best of their ability. And they didn't. I mean, Mustafi and Socrates didn't give the ball away glaringly. I mean, they may, but no big glaring errors doing it. And they're clearly not comfortable doing it. So for me, that's another place where, again, I'm trying not to be too negative about the manager, but you've got to put the blame on Emery for that. I was saying to the people that I was sitting by that I dare say Cech's a better shot stopper than Leno. I would openly accept that. Leno is 10 million times better with his feet. So if you're going to play out from the back and be as dedicated and be as you have to play out from the back, then you absolutely have to play Leno in goal. Because Cech, you're not going to teach an old dog new tricks. He has been a brilliant keeper, but even at his absolute best for Chelsea, he still couldn't kick the ball. So you're not going to teach him at 36 years of age or however old he is to start kicking the ball. So, as I said, I mean, obviously the question was on Socrates, and I think he had a good game. And I don't think you can label anything where he looked a bit shaky with the ball on him because he's never been a ball-playing centre-back. He's never going to be a ball-playing centre-back. And for me, any manager coming in and trying to make him a ball-playing centre-back is ridiculous. If they're that worried about only having players that can play football and not too worried about the defensive aspect, play Holding and Chambers. Because they're a million times better with the ball than Mustafi and Socrates.
Well, we've lost Chambers now, haven't we?
Yeah, I know, but that's what I'm saying. Or even Mavropanos. If you're only focused on ball players, which it seems like the way we played was all about playing with the ball, then I'm afraid them two guys ain't going to do it for you. And this is nothing against them because as much as I don't like Mustafi, I thought he had a good game as well. I thought they were two of our, I wouldn't say best players. I don't think anyone deserves a best player award, but I think they both done their jobs. They didn't excel, but they didn't do badly. And within that performance yesterday, not doing badly was good because of the way it was. Yeah,
no, I agree. Schwinn, you touched quickly on Maitland-Niles. Look, he went off injured. I think it was about the 35th minute. Mate, he was absolutely getting hammered by Mahrez and Walker down that left-hand side. Lichtsteiner then came on. What was your thoughts on him, mate? He went and played in the left-back position.
Well, just quickly on Maitland-Niles, in terms of physicality, I thought he did pretty well. I mean, the challenge that brought him down, he did really well to recover with the pace of Kyle Walker. And, of course, there was a tangle of legs that left him injured. But that's where I put some blame on Socrates as well. He's the more experienced centre-back. He's the one who has Maitland-Niles on his side. And he should be the one communicating with him. I think the key mistake of our game yesterday was communication, whether that was the telepathic communication we rely on with Mesut Ozil, Mkhitaryan, and Aubameyang, and Ramsey, of course, who was playing in an advanced position yesterday, or it is the communication that has to be very explicit. And I thought maybe Socrates is not quite well versed with the English language just yet. I don't know what his English ability is, but I would expect him to be giving more instruction to Maitland-Niles. Has played left back in the past, but that's not his natural position. Having said that, of course, he had a horrid time, and Mkhitaryan didn't offer a lot of support either. When he did, it was mostly more, towards the interior, and that left Maitland-Niles one-on-one, with Kyle Walker or Mahrez running past him. Lichtsteiner, to his credit, did very well. He doesn't look 34, I can tell you that. His work rate, his pace was very good. Had a couple of decent overlaps, and didn't really cross the ball too well. But that's not to really blame him, because that's not, again, his natural position. He's, I'm sure, better at crossing with his right foot. A bastard of a defender too. Let Mahrez know that he's there as soon as he came on. Had a little bit of an incident with Laporte and wasn't having any of that. I like seeing that in our defenders who have often been, accused of being too soft. So I thought we looked a bit more secure. It could have been because City put the brakes on. I'm not sure how it felt in the ground. But from watching on the telly, I felt more secure that he was there and he was willing to put a crunching challenge in when it mattered. He was at fault. I think he sort of turned off when Bernardo Silva scored that goal. But there's 3-4 things going on in that goal, so we'll probably talk about that when we get there.
Mm-hmm. Just quickly, because you were critical of Bellerin in pre-season, your thoughts on that?
Again, very tough to say, because he didn't have a great game. Didn't get to attack a whole lot. That's obviously his forte. And on the couple occasions he did, he never really got in very advanced positions. The one time he did, he got a decent shot off, but you would expect him to do a bit better, perhaps, or maybe I'm just being a bit too cynical. In terms of defense, again, very narrow, very, very close to Mustafi. And, with Mesut Ozil dropping deeper in the first half, and then going more advanced in the second, that support vanished altogether. So, he had to maintain his position out back and not really go bombing forward. So I'm not sure this is the right game to judge Bellerin off of, if I'm honest.
Yep, couldn't agree more. Tony, Guendouzi. I thought there was a lot of praise against the young, for the young lad. He didn't have too bad a game. For me, and you correct me if I'm wrong, but I looked and thought, well, he was type of running around like a headless chook. And, then we get into Granit Xhaka, and we'll talk about him a bit later. But there was no forward play from Guendouzi. So I didn't see anything happening with him. He made a few errors, and he ran on, and he chased the ball well. He tackled hard when he did. But there was no attack. There was no. Where was the attack coming from?
Yeah, but he's not there to be an attacking influencer. And I think people are going over the top on how well he played. I think he done well or better than expected from a 19-year-old that no one had heard of in June, and now suddenly starting in the Premier League against Man City. In that sense, yes, he done very well. But if you look at the scale of the match, and I'm kind of bored of rating players on what we expect from them. From now, I just want to rate players as players, because you get times like, and you just spoke about Bellerin, when people go, "Oh, he done well for Bellerin." I don't want him to do well for Bellerin. I want him to just do well, and you don't need these little caveats at the end of every sentence. And I think that's the issue with Guendouzi yesterday. I thought he done okay, but everyone's going, "Oh, look at the composure from a 19-year-old, blah blah blah." And I accept that's fact; it's true. But at some point, we just need good performances, not good for a 19-year-old or good for someone that's not played in a division before. So he's not there to attack. I thought he done well at times. I thought he showed his age and inexperience and maybe immaturity at times as well. Again, he done better than I expected for someone of his age in a game of that magnitude, but that's got to stop being a benchmark for us. Otherwise, we're just going to continue to carry along where we are. We can't be going, "Oh yeah, he done," like, even at times when, like, say, Reece Nelson's played, or, "Oh, he done better than expected." I don't want better than expected. I just want good. That's all I ask. And I think as a club we've been too comfortable and too accepting in just, "Oh yeah, I didn't expect him to be that good." What's that worth? That's not worth anything.
Mm-hmm. No, I agree. Look, he was. He was okay for me. Like, I didn't think at the end of the game, "Oh well, this 19-year-old kid, I want him to start every game." And there's a lot of people that are saying that, and I'm happy to be proven wrong, but I don't want him starting in my team yet, week in, week out. Granit Xhaka, now we're going to have to talk about him. There is a couple of questions regarding it, and everybody was type of wondering about my views. It's come through on Twitter and whatnot. Look, I'm not a dumb cunt, okay? I do watch football with my eyes, so, as Tony says. he was poor. I think he was very poor. However, he was partnered with this young 19-year-old Guendouzi, and I don't know whether it threw him off his game a little bit. There's no partnership there. I don't know how many games they played in pre-season together. I don't think they played any. Well, they might have. Anyway, so I don't know. It was a real test. It was a real gamble for Guendouzi to play. Xhaka's obviously next to him. Xhaka didn't have a real good game at all. There was lots of stray passes. His attack was pretty poor. There was a yellow card issued there, and I thought to myself, well, had that yellow card not have been issued, there'd probably be three. Probably would have scored. They probably would have scored off it. So I'm not going to criticise him for that one too much. I would like to see Granit and Torreira more so than Guendouzi. But that's just my thoughts. I thought it was a big gamble starting Guendouzi, and because there's nobody's played with him, nobody knows who he is. I don't even know. I presume Emery's the man to get these fitness up, as Tony said earlier, and video on the players and whatnot. But I didn't see any of that yesterday. So anyway, well, you mentioned, Tony, that you thought he was the worst player of the team yesterday.
Yeah, look, I thought Granit was the worst player on the pitch by a distance, and I quite like Granit, as regular listeners will know, but I thought he was awful. I mean, going on the midfield selection, I think, look, no one was fully fit. Torreira's not fully fit. Xhaka clearly wasn't fit. Ramsey clearly wasn't fit. And Guendouzi probably was. So he was probably the first name on the team sheet out of the midfield because he was the only one that had any running in him. From then on, you have to piece it round. And if you're going to have an unfit player, I guess you probably choose one that knows the league rather than one that doesn't. So you pick Xhaka ahead of Torreira in that instance. But Xhaka was slow, and I don't mean him running. He got the ball and he took 3 touches to do everything. He was very slack. His passing was loose. It was just, to be honest, I can't name anything he done well. And as I said, I'm not one of them people that hates Xhaka and hammers him every week. I'll say he's poor when he's been poor, and I'll say he's good when he's been good. But I really just can't even think of a single moment where I thought Xhaka done well there. And as you bring up, maybe the only one was the booking, which when the highlight of your game is a foul on the halfway line and getting booked, you kind of know what sort of level of performance that is.
Oh, yeah, exactly. It's nothing to be proud of. Schwinn, I'll get your opinions on Granit, mate.
I fear for him. I think, as expected, Taz, you've been a bit soft on him. I think to say that he was starting besides Guendouzi and that led to a lot of mistakes, I think that's a bit unfair on Guendouzi, if I'm honest. A pass that is 5 yards, 10 yards away from you shouldn't go astray. You shouldn't be getting pressed so many times and still taking 3 or 4 touches, as Tony said. Look, football moves very quickly, and I fear for his position in the team, because we have a lot of depth in midfield. And depending on playing 2 or 3 midfielders, a 4-2-3-1 or a 4-3-3, there's even more competition. And if you have Torreira, Guendouzi, Granit Xhaka, and Aaron Ramsey battling for those positions in the future, I fear for him because the only way he can compensate for his lack of pace is being quick in his head and moving the ball on. Show yourself again after quickly moving the ball so that your teammates have made more moves and there's more options, and then the opponents are looking to get back in position. Yesterday there was none of that, and it was not only was it bad team selection with that in mind. Maybe Elneny deserves a shout here. Maybe he was much more fit to be playing and he would have been a bit more secure. But I really do fear for him. And again, I'm a Xhaka fan as well. So again, it's nothing personal or nothing agenda based. But I genuinely do feel that he might have lost his position for the next one.
Yeah, I'll continue down the path. So you Granit, we obviously said he had a very poor game. Once again, and I don't want to bring this up, Schwinn, big game, Ozil, mate. He was nowhere yesterday. Now, here's a player who you expect big things from. What was your thoughts on him?
Oh, I expect humongous things from him. And yesterday he was very, very bad. I'll be the first one to admit that. But you have to look at where he was placed. Look, in the first half, he was much deeper. And when you think of that, then you think of course, a bit more towards the defensive side of his contribution, which, to his credit, was very, very good. It was up there with the best. Hector Bellerin and Mesut Ozil both had the most number of recoveries throughout the 90 minutes, including City players, who, granted, didn't have to make a lot of recoveries in the first place. I think when the ball got to him, there was a lot of heavy pressing that he had to deal with, and they wouldn't let him turn on to his favorite left foot. That led to him giving the ball away. That's when players like Guendouzi or Hector Bellerin, of course, maybe even to an extent Mustafi should be showing themselves, and that's where some of the structural issues showed. This is not an excuse, but I'm just trying to understand why these things happen. But more worryingly, to your point, Tess, in the second half, or even in the first half, when he found himself in more of an advanced position, some of the passes just weren't going off, whether it was Aubameyang or Mkhitaryan. He just was unable to find them. Look, we know he's got the quality, right? I don't think anyone of us doubts that. So I have to imagine that it has something to do with the way we are supposed to be playing and the way the new structure has to be set in. The 5-yard passes, the 10-yard passes, no excuse whatsoever. He almost got a goal at the end, but of course there was some miscommunication yet again between him and Lacazette. I thought this was one of his worst games in an Arsenal shirt on the ball, but it was one of his best games in an Arsenal shirt off the ball.
Yeah, I don't want my number 10 defending Ozil. I'm sorry, I don't want him down there with Bellerin, helping Bellerin out trying to defend. I know we're playing a fucking great team in City, but I don't want him back there with Bellerin and Guendouzi and whatnot and Mustafi. I want him up there, ready to pounce and with Aubameyang and whatnot and ready to fucking strike. And that's my
just quickly.
Yep.
I will say just quickly again. I'll be happy to admit when some of the mistakes have been made, and I can see why Ramsey was. Because if you want to start the press high, then Ramsey is probably a better trigger, right? But then at the same time, if your number 10 is moving out of position, who was Ramsey yesterday, into the left wing or the right wing, then you need midfielders to come and take up that position. And, no one, Guendouzi or Mesut Ozil, Granit Xhaka doesn't have the recovery pace to do that. So you imagine it has to be Guendouzi or Ozil who are popping into that position and covering that area. That's why it was very easy for City to just surpass the press, and then their pace was good enough for them to come very close to our goal. And that's another place where I think he could have done better. But I think he wasn't put in a place to succeed. As you said, he was not in the number 10 position, and maybe the number 10 is not what he needs to be. Maybe the right wing or the left wing, depending on how you view his role. But I think Emery went for a quote-unquote masterstroke, something that we hadn't even seen in preseason, with him deeper and Ramsey forward, and he thought it could be something that would catch the opposition off guard. But I think it backfired, and if it wasn't the first game of the season, I think City would have put 2-3 goals more on us.
Tony, you were at the ground, obviously watching the game. Now, we've mentioned Guendouzi, we've mentioned Xhaka, we've mentioned Ozil. I think we touched quickly on Ramsey, Mkhitaryan, Aubameyang. There wasn't a player who was outstanding. However, I noticed on the TV, and I don't know if it was on your television as well, Swin, your broadcast, wherever you were, there was a lot of yelling on the side of the field from Emery. Now, was it the players just confused as fuck as to what the instructions actually were?
They were going over to talk to him at every break, which is...
Yeah, I know.
I mean, it shows tactical adaptability, I guess. What I will say is pretty much nothing changed. Especially in the first half, I sit pretty much directly behind Emery, just to the left. And our shape was so bad, and we were just... So City are quite clever. When they've got the ball at the back, the opposite fullback drops into more of a number 10 position, really. So if Kyle Walker's got the ball or John Stones at right centre-back, Mendy was dropping into a sort of 10-ish, and Sterling goes really wide. And Bellerin was refusing to come out and mark Sterling. So at times it was either both Ozil and Bellerin on Mendy and Sterling just chilling on his own free, or Ozil has to go out and go man-to-man on Sterling, which is the most ridiculous thing I've ever seen. like considering the defensive abilities of Ozil, and it's not his fault. The system made him go there, and I've got the same view as Emery, give or take. I'm a bit higher, so my view's probably a little bit better, but I'm thinking he has to change this. Even if you say to Hector, I don't care how far away you are from Mustafi, and I know they're worried about Aguero's pacing behind, so they try and keep Hector quite close. But at some point, someone's got to say to him, look, we can't have Ozil and Sterling one-on-one. You just can't do it. And Mendy barely needs one person on him, let alone two. So Hector, get fucking wide, stop Sterling, who is a million times more dangerous than Mendy's ever going to be. And just literally, it was so close to Emery, and he came over and he talked to Ramsey a lot, he talked to Hector a hell of a lot. And every time he called Hector over, I was thinking, brilliant, they're going to sort this out. And whether that's what he was telling them and they just didn't do it because Hector never comes wide, or if he was telling them something else, he was telling me he had nice hair, I don't know, but it was doing my fucking head in. And I don't even know if, for me, I mean, I blame Hector for it, because even you've got to have enough football intelligence to know that isn't right. That you can just leave Sterling, who got 20 goals last year, on his own and have two men on the left back. So he was shouting a lot. He spoke to Guendouzi a lot as well. Obviously, no one's ever going to know what he said, and they made a point of highlighting it when I watched the highlights last night, that he's already started covering his mouth when he's speaking, so no lip readers can see.
I noticed that, yeah.
So, I mean, look, no one's ever going to know what he's saying, but it is a good thing to talk to them because it shows that you're tactically adaptable. But I saw a hell of a lot of talking yesterday, and barring a switch for Ramsey and Ozil, or Ozil and Mkhitaryan a couple of times, which tends to happen from players themselves usually, I didn't really see anything adapt.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, no, there was a lot of talk, but like you say, who knows what was actually being said, and who knows if they could even understand him, because fuck, he's hard to understand. But anyway, I don't know, boys, where to go from here, but look, I'll try and find a bit of positive on it. Lacazette came on, and I thought, Tony, at that point when Lacazette came on with Aubameyang, we actually looked like we might get a goal. Things were starting to look a bit better. Would you be tempted to say Lacazette, Aubameyang against Chelsea?
Yeah, look, again, anyone that listens to this regularly will know I'm not Lacazette's biggest fan. I think he's been given an easy ride by Arsenal fans the whole time he's here, but I'm also not biased, and I recognise that he changed the game when he came on. He made a couple of stupid decisions, but he looked like our brightest spark. He looked way brighter than Aubameyang did. In the first 10 minutes on the pitch, Lacazette done more than Aubameyang did in the 50 or however many he'd had before that. If you're going purely on what happened yesterday, you can't not start Lacazette, because the system didn't even look right without him on the pitch. Yeah. And everyone knows I've been advocating playing Aubameyang as a 9, because I think we look a lot more dangerous with him there. But it just didn't look right yesterday, and I'm not blaming Aubameyang for that. But as soon as Lacazette came on, it just all seemed to look better. So for me, I know I've wholly changed my tune from last week, but
you have to, though,
based on yesterday, I think you have to start him.
Yeah. Look, we'll get our Chelsea line up a bit later in the podcast. I'm just going to go through. Schwinn, what was you were the same, mate? When Lacazette came on.
I agree that he improved us, but as I said at Mesut Ozil, Lacazette looked better off the ball than he did on the ball. As soon as he came on, he had a chance, and that volley just went wide. If you are taking a shot on from there, you have to test the goalkeeper. I'm sorry, it doesn't matter whether you've been on the pitch a minute or you've been on there for 40 minutes. It doesn't matter to me. You have to test the goalkeeper there. Similarly with the chance at the very end where there was a mix-up and Ederson kicked the ball right to Mesut Ozil, and he tried to lay it off of Lacazette. Lacazette has to know that Ederson is charging the ball down there and has to lay it off, or at least get his body between himself and the goalkeeper there. I think he improved us. I don't disagree with that. But if we are giving him some credit, we also have to recognize the instances where he didn't deliver. There's two ways of looking at the game, right? One, you have to look at the structural issues and some of the more systematic things that we've tried to inculcate into our game. And the second is the quality that the players bring to the table. I think the structural issues we are happy to give Emery time with. We recognize a time, maybe even a season. but you have to deliver when the structure puts you in a position to capitalize. Mkhitaryan played a ball later on to Lacazette. Again, a bit behind him, but he should be doing better there. You have to deliver with your quality, and that just seemed missing from pretty much every player yesterday. So credit where credit is due, but I think there has to be some introspection into how we play with the ball as well, and not just without it.
Mm-hmm. Okay. Also,
can I just say on that Lacazette chance that when he let it run to Ederson, as much as I wanted to run on the pitch and drop kick him, he thought he was offside. He was nowhere near offside, but he was actually leaving the ball for Ozil because he thought if he touched it, he was offside. He was wrong, but it wasn't a lack of sharpness or anything. I agree with the volley that he should have done a lot better. But yeah, that's what happened there. And trust me, I was going absolutely mental because some City players were out on their feet and I thought they were not on the ropes, but I thought if we scored that we really could have panicked them. So I was going absolutely nuts when Lacazette left that ball, but he just pressed the keeper and thought he was offside.
I think that's a very good
play
point.
Anyway. But
yeah, no, I think that's a very good point. But you should be aware that you're not offside, and maybe that's asking a bit too much because things happen pretty quickly, right? But the communication, it all comes back.
When he charged Ederson, when he actually started running, there was no City play, so he would have been offside if we had the ball. But as Ederson held the ball, 3 City players spanning behind him. So I don't know if he even could have known. I put some blame on Mesut Ozil as well here because there has to be communication. It comes back to that. Socrates, Maitland-Niles, there was no communication. I thought there was very little communication between our mids and our fullbacks. Lichtsteiner did fine because he's experienced, but Hector Bellerin, to your point, Tony, should have been asking his midfielders to drop deeper so that he can go wider. As I said, our fullbacks were way too narrow throughout the game, and that's just what it seemed like on the telly. So it's even more worrisome that even when you were at the ground, that was constantly an issue and was never fixed. It comes back to the communication once again. Look, Emery's the new manager. I can understand him having a problem with that. But for these players who've played with each other for a year or in some cases even more, it's unacceptable. It's unforgivable behavior. And, it just screamed that these players weren't ready. And we've been saying on and on throughout the offseason that, these players have come back early from the World Cup and, they look fit. Arsenal has been putting videos out of how fit they are, how much harder they're working. But no one in their right mind can believe that was the case yesterday, especially when you look at the City players. And, their players just came back a week before the Community Shield. So there has to be a lot of work that has to be put into this team, and not just in terms of the quality, but also in terms of the structure, of course.
Yeah, okay. No, I'm just thinking, though, on what you said. And I'll go back to, I don't want to shit all over this kid, but Guendouzi, nobody has ever played with him. Like, for me, you're up against Manchester City, right? You're up against the best team in the competition. And you've got a kid who nobody has seen, nobody has played with. I would have started Torreira. I know.
Guendouzi's played more minutes with them. Guendouzi's played more minutes with them than Torreira, so it kind of makes your point mute. That Torreira's played 45 minutes. Guendouzi's played the whole pre-season.
What I'm getting at though is I know you can't ask him, but all them players would know who Torreira is prior to Guendouzi. Nobody had ever seen or heard of Guendouzi until Arsenal had signed him. He played in a second French league side that nobody watches, nobody even knows the kid. Never seen the kid in my life.
I think that's a bit of a wild assumption that people. I mean, I understand your point there, but I think
how many games have you watched Guendouzi play prior to yesterday?
But I'd seen Torreira play 0 games as well before we signed him from Sampdoria. The only games I watched him play was at the World Cup, and even when I saw a Serie A game here or there, I never recognized Torreira as this terrier. We also have to look at what was required off of that player in that position. Torreira is someone who's going to sit deeper while your team attacks, as opposed to Guendouzi, who gets on the ball and gets things going. But City's high press was so, captivating and handicapping us almost that it just never ticked. I get your point that, he's never played at a game of this level and this pressure before. But I don't think Torreira is necessarily the answer. For me, I'd rather put Granit Xhaka in that position and throw El Neni in the position that Xhaka was playing.
Well, El Neni's a better shout, I think. You know, as just El Neni. I know we don't rate him.
I'm not sure why we haven't.
Him, but he's a better
I'm not sure why we haven't spoken about him a whole lot, because, you know, if you're going for cohesion, if you're going for a result, not a win necessarily, but to get something out of the game, to begin the game especially, I thought El Neni deserved, you know, a starting chance instead of Guendouzi. Again, I must confess that I think Guendouzi played a bit better than what, you know, personally speaking, I think he played a bit better than what you guys felt. But we never put him in positions for him to succeed. You know, playing out of the back yesterday was just moronic, and that led to a lot of trouble. Let's not forget Guendouzi did almost make a mistake when Aguero was let through on goal, and of course Czech came to our rescue then. But again, it's about putting players in a position where they can succeed, and Guendouzi was not put in one of those positions, I feel.
You said that he started some plays. How many plays did he start yesterday?
That's the point, though. If you get him the ball, it's not as if he's going to be able to turn around the corner, especially when your fullbacks are rooted to the spot. If the attacking midfielder from the opponent is charging you down as you're dropping deeper as Guendouzi, you need one of your fullbacks to get around the opposing winger. How many times did you see that happen? He was always forced to drop the ball deeper to Czech.
Yeah, he kept playing back. Yeah.
Yeah, so you have to understand why that was the case. It's not as if he didn't have the ability to play it. You just need to nick the ball around the corner. And neither did Lichtsteiner make those runs.
I think he had plenty of time, because there was a lot of times where he went on his own. There was quite a few times where he went on his own and then lost the ball.
I don't disagree. I don't think he had a great game. I mean, I'm not trying to cover for him here. I'm just trying to understand why certain things happen. See, no player wants to play a negative ball, right? They want to move the ball forward. But when they don't, and that repetitively, you have to see what's going on around them. And I think a lot of times our players were left ball watching, including
I want the kid to succeed. I want the kid to succeed, mate. Don't get me wrong. But I just think when you're playing a Manchester City, you've got a kid who... Okay, he's had a couple of pre-season games with us. He looked good in pre-season against a couple of teams. But like you say, you've got... Okay, well, let's say on Nani. Who else we have on the bench? Iwobi. You've got players there sitting on the bench who at least we could have maybe tried to get a result. But then on the flip side, Granit Xhaka, he was poor. So fitness lacked him as well. So I have to say, well, maybe Granit Xhaka shouldn't have started either. Maybe El Neni should have started there. But my problem is there's just no team cohesion with this Guendouzi at the moment. I hope there is. I don't think we're ready, boys. I do not think we're ready for Manchester City.
Yeah, I have to agree with that. I also have to just point out that the amount of times we tried to play it from the back, despite it not working, was pretty idiotic as well. I mean, when you have Guendouzi, who, for all his faults, is young and is not able to drive the ball forward, as you mentioned, Tez, then you have to kick it up the field. And of course, the Arsenal fans at the stadium were quite jeery when Czech opted to kick the ball up once. And if I'm not mistaken, I think something came of that as well. Nothing great, but I think we almost threatened, because Aubameyang won the header, and I think he flicked it on to Mkhitaryan, and we went on to enjoy a spell of possession. So again, we're not putting our players in a position to succeed, I feel. I don't think it was just a personnel issue. I think it was a bit more rooted in how we were set up and how we were expected to play yesterday.
Mm-hmm. Okay, Tony, you got anything quickly to add there, or we'll move on?
Our fans are shit.
Our fans are shit. Absolutely, they fucking are, actually. They are.
Ridiculous.
Yeah, it has been pretty piss poor. Look, I'm happy. I'll give Emery as long as it takes when I say as long as I take, I better be careful there. But for me, it's a first game in. It's against Manchester City, and I know, look, okay, people are going to go, oh yeah, but we would have liked to get a draw out of it. But for fuck's sake, Manchester City for me are probably the top 4 teams in Europe at the moment. So Arsenal are nowhere near a Manchester City. And our fans are absolutely hammering Emery at the moment. And look, we'll be critical when we have to be, boys, but we also try and look for a positive. So, yeah, I agree with you totally there, Tony.
Yeah, I mean, look, when I say our fans are shit, I mean, I don't know if I misheard Schwinn, but I think, as I said, I might be wrong, he said the fans were jeering when Czech kicked it long. They was actually cheering because they were so bored of trying to play out from the back. But it was like after he made that mistake and it was calamitous where he nearly passed it into his own goal. Every time he got the ball after that for the next 5 minutes and actually complete the pass, there was like loud cheers. And I'm thinking, who's that going to help? That's doing no one any favours. You're just being a prick. And it wasn't one person. It was a big part of the ground. Like, you're not doing anyone any favours. And then, look, I think at 2-0 down with 10 minutes to go, we were still in the game because they did look so tired. And the ground was empty. And I'm thinking, why'd you bother come? Like, would you go? They get home 10 minutes earlier than me because they leave 10 minutes earlier.
Yeah, I've seen that.
What do they do with them 10 minutes? Is there 10,000 people that are desperate for a shit and they need to leave 10 minutes early? Does EastEnders start and they don't want to miss the first 10 minutes? I don't get it. I've never got it. And obviously, I forgot his name, the geezer from ESPN that done an interview with me last year with Mateus something, Schwinn will know his name, said, why is there empty seats? Why do people leave early? Is it anything to do with Wenger? And I said at the time, no, the fans are morons. It's because it doesn't matter if we're 3-0 up, 3-0 down, 1-1 when it's edge of your seat stuff, they leave at the same time every week. And this has just shown that people have gone, it's just apathy because of Wenger. No, it's not. The Emirates is filled with a bunch of wankers. You don't see at away games. I've been to away games when we've been 3-0 down, and we've been 3-0 down at half time, and we've just spent the whole second half singing. And the game may have finished 3-0, may have finished 4-0, may have finished 5-0. No one leaves. The Emirates is just filled with just shit fans, pretty much. Probably and obviously, I'm not saying all 60,000 of them. Of course, I'm not. But the large majority of the Emirates fans are shite.
They're probably going to line up for AFTV Media, which just recently changed their name.
In all fairness to them, as much as I disagree with pretty much every view any of them ever have, and I've seen some ridiculous ones overnight from yesterday just pop up on Twitter. I don't know them from home games, but obviously with away fans, there's not that many of you, so you happen to sit next to them time to time or be in and around them. As I said, as much as I don't agree with most of what they say, they never leave a game early. So
so they're not lining up for that.
Well, no, I mean, because the regular ones, they I'm assuming they don't have to queue. But people can say they're part of a problem, and you can either agree or disagree. But this problem I'm talking about with people just leaving 10 minutes early for no apparent reason, they're not in that group. So when I'm hammering fans and saying fans are shit, I'm not including them in that for this particular reason.
Righto. Okay, let's move on now. Savvy has done some ratings. Savvy looks after our Twitter account when games are on because I'm too lazy, Schwinn's too lazy, Tony's at the game. So Savvy does a good job and throws out our tweets. So he's also does our reviews at clockandtalk.blogspot.com. Craig, Savvy, Carl, who else is there? Paddy, a couple of other boys run that blog site. Now, he has been pretty critical. He give you can read it yourself though, but just looking for it now, boys. I think he'd give Granit Xhaka a 4. He gave Ozil a 5.5, were his two worst players. Maitland-Niles, I thought you were a bit harsh there, Savvy, at 4.5 because I thought, it wasn't his fault. He's just getting smashed. But anyway, so check it out, clockandtalk.blogspot.com. And thank you, Savvy. Each and every week we're joined by a couple of our listeners, and you can do the same via Skype. All our details are at clockand_talk. This week we have Tim joining us. How are you, Tim?
Hello. I'm fine. How are you guys?
Yeah, good, mate. Good. What's your question for the boys, mate?
Yes, I have a question. How do you feel about our formation and our squad last match, last game. What do you think about Xhaka, especially? Because I'm not a huge fan of him, so that's the question.
Tony?
I found the formation weird, but I feel like we were looking after players that weren't fit. I think of all of our centre midfielders, none of them were really fit, so we just tried to get bodies on the pitch. Ramsey playing at 10, almost a 9, was, in my view, ridiculous. And I know a lot of people are going to say, oh, you can't slay Emery as his first game. And I'm not saying he's a bad manager, and I'm not really saying anything negative about him, but in my opinion, that team selection was wrong. And I think most people would agree with that. That doesn't mean I'm against Emery. Of course I want him to succeed, but I think his team selection was wrong. I think his shape was wrong. But I think, as I said, it had a lot to do with fitness, and he had to get 3 centre midfielders on the pitch. Xhaka didn't have 90 minutes in him. Ramsey clearly didn't. Torreira clearly didn't. I would argue that Guendouzi didn't. He looked knackered after about 65 minutes, but we couldn't take anyone else off. So it was literally just a case of trying to get him on the pitch. So I feel there was a lot wrong, but I'm not necessarily going to blame Emery for that. In terms of Xhaka, he did have a poor game. There's no two ways about it. For me, he was our worst player. But he wasn't fit. He was nowhere near fit. I think it's a joke that we've gone into the season with a manager or a new staff that are meant to be so disciplinarian and base their game on a high press, which you have to be very fit for. And we've gone in with players that are, when I say not fit, I don't mean they were carrying injuries. That maybe was the case in Ramsey's case, but they were not fit as in they weren't physically fit enough to play 90 minutes in the Premier League. When we've been told for months that Emery's based on fitness and whatnot, for me that's unforgivable. It's like coming in and saying, oh, this is one of our main strengths, but then you can't use that one strength or that main strength. Doesn't make sense to me. I also thought playing Ramsey so high up was stupid because for me his best asset is his engine. He gets up and down, and playing him high up, you lose that. But again, maybe he wasn't fit, but we know he's been carrying an injury. But yeah, I just think there was loads of, I don't even know if you want to call them mistakes, but I think there was a lot that was wrong.
What was your thoughts on it, Tim?
Actually, there's not so much to add because really it was quite strange formation. So yeah.
Are you like? And I have heard a few other fans saying, obviously Emery's at fault. Are you thinking the same, or obviously we're all going to give Emery a chance, but for you as a fan, what's your point of view on the manager, on his decision with that formation?
Actually, I think it's just first game, and we have not too many players on feet, so it was quite not so many players to put on the field. So it was like a huge experiment, not something prepared, but trying to have the best from what you have at the moment. So I think it's not so bad because we played against the best team in Premier League. So I think just to think to think about it. I think Chelsea will be a different game. So let's see.
Who's you touched quickly there on Chelsea before we hang up from you? What's your formation and your starting lineup against Chelsea?
I think Czech should stay on goal, and I think the defense should be the same. But probably it will be Lichtsteiner on the left. But I don't want to see Xhaka on the pitch. I want to see Torreira from start. And I think Lacazette should play also. So I think that's the thing to change.
Okay, so Guendouzi and Torreira, will you be your midfields?
Yes, it's like this. Yes.
Yeah. Okay. No worries. Okay, mate. Well, thank you for your call, and yeah, mate. Once again, yeah. Thanks as always, buddy, and we'll catch up with you again, eh?
Yeah, thank you. Goodbye. Good luck,
on you, mate.
and see you next time.
Okay, cheers.
Thank
mate.
you.
See you, buddy.
Cheers.
Get into a couple of questions. Because we've got
Let's
a few
go.
to get through. Tony Vish says the first half looked like the old Arsenal, lacking belief against the bigger teams. The second half we seem to play with more confidence. Do certain individuals in our midfield need replacing, as well as our fullbacks, before we reach the levels of City and Liverpool? Good question.
I'm just done with Hector Bellerin now, so I know he's asked about the fullback. So I just think he's positionally poor. He's not very good with the ball. He's quick, but he doesn't use his pace. So I think that's someone that a lot of Arsenal fans see as stable, and you can have a good enough team with him in it. For me, I don't think he's good enough for pretty much any aspect of the game. People say he's great going forward. I don't think he is. I think he's willing, but he can't cross the ball. He scores 2 goals a year, and I'm not saying you expect goals from your fullback, but like, come on, if you're going to tell me he's great attacking, show me at least 10 assists, because that's what great attacking fullbacks do. Not even some probably average attacking fullbacks do that. You look at a lot of Arsenal fans will tell you Marcus Alonso at Chelsea isn't good, but his numbers are a hell of a lot better than Bellerin's. I can tell you that without even looking. So for me, I agree. We definitely need an upgrade on that side if we're looking at Liverpool and City's level. The first half, it was weird. We started off like just knocking the ball around, and we looked like, okay, we've got a bit about us. We're moving the ball around, but then as soon as they put their foot on the gas, we didn't have a clue. We're just look, you put it right earlier. We're just not at their level, and I'm not too annoyed about the result because we lost to, as you said, one of the best teams in Europe at the moment. It was more the way we played and the style we played in. 2-0 to City, lost to City. As horrible as this to say it is, as an Arsenal fan who wants us to be the best we can be, isn't the most shameful result in current times. It's probably about where we're at.
I agree. Yeah, I agree. I'd hate to be a West Ham fan. You know, you've spent a lot of money. Liverpool absolutely annihilated them. I don't want to get off topic, but if our result was 4-0, I'd be going, fuck, boys, we're in for a long season.
Yeah, as I said, I agree with you. Look, we're not at the level of these teams. I think people are putting Liverpool up there prematurely because they've made some good signings and they had a win, but they were capable of beating teams like West Ham 4-0 at home last season as well. For me, City will still win the league very comfortably. They won't lose more than 3 games in the league this year, I don't think. So if Liverpool are to be up there, they have to be stupidly consistent, and I personally can't see it. But as I said, we've just lost to a team that are in a different league to us. I said it last year, and I'll say it this year. I said it before the start of the season. Everyone breaks the Premier League down into 3 leagues: the top 6, the bottom 6, and the middle 8. For me, there's so many more mini leagues than that, and City are in a mini league of their own. For me, the City is in a league of its own as the top 1, and then at the moment, I'd say 2 to 6 are probably the same league, but Liverpool are looking like they could be in a league of their own and challenging to get into City's league. But for us, we're playing a team above our station, and we lost to them, which is not okay, but expected. I expected to lose. I expected 3-0, if I'm honest. My prediction was 3-0.
Well, I'm just going to, just because we're talking on the subject, and I know it's Community Shield, but if you watch that Community Shield game, City v Chelsea, City were absolutely played all over Chelsea. Absolutely similar to what they did to us. They were just the better team. Now, we played Chelsea this weekend, who I would like to think, this is a real test for us this weekend. I would like to see if we're on par with Chelsea, or are we on a Watford terms? You know what I mean? Like, this weekend against Chelsea is going to tell me on where we're going to be sitting in the league. If we get a draw against Chelsea, well, I'm kind of happy. If we get a win against Chelsea, obviously very happy. But if we lose 3-0 to Chelsea or something, I'm thinking, fucking hell, lads, we are in for a long season.
Yeah, I mean, I wouldn't judge where we're at 2 games in against City and Chelsea, because it's entirely possible to lose both of them games. We've not got a great record at Stamford Bridge, and it is a very hard place to go. It's quite tight, quite packed in. It's never a nice place to play, and And even Chelsea, you never see nice, open, expansive football there just because of the way the ground is. And even Chelsea, even when they're flowing, you wouldn't say it's great pass and move football because it is really hard to play like that at Stamford Bridge. So, I mean, I wouldn't base where we're at from a season, but I would absolutely agree that for me, if in the mini leagues that I break it down in, which may be different from everyone else's, Chelsea are in our mini league. So you are looking for positive results there.
Yeah. Okay, Vish says, and I'll probably answer this very quickly. Vish says, before I go to Schwinn, sorry, mate. We've spent 35 million on Granite. Liverpool paid 50 million on Naby Keita. Even in his first game, it's evident who is the more suitable to the Premier League. Diamond Eye needs to live up to his name and find us some quality players to address. So actually, we'll go to you, Schwinn, because I don't want to be biased.
Well, I don't think this is a question. I think he's having a dialogue with Hakon. I would also like to point out, if that is what Vish meant, that Xhaka was not. Xhaka was before Sven Mislintat. If he's saying that we need to find someone to replace him, again, one game into the season, again, Ted, as you mentioned, we were playing one of the best teams in the land, if not in Europe, and 2-0. I know it could have been 3-0 or maybe even 4 towards the end of the game. But let's not forget that we rescued something out of it if we had taken those chances. So, it's not all doom and gloom quite yet. We need to reserve our judgment at least till Christmas, I would say, if not till the end of the season. And the more the time passes, we'll have more of an idea of who is suitable to this system and who isn't. That's not to say players are good or bad. It's just who is more employable in certain systems. So, I'm not quite sure if that's a statement or a question, but I'm happy to give our players time.
Yeah, sorry, I've just gone through it. It's the boys having a conversation. Good on you, lads. Okay, Hakon, let's get into it. Hakon Larsen, I'm going to go to you, Schwinn, because you wrote a really good article during the week about this subject. So, regarding Stan, do you think he will care more about the club when he owns it 100%? Maybe a stupid thought, but lot may have happened between him and Usmanov. Easier to invest in something you own 100% by yourself, isn't it? They may have had a pissing contest for all we know.
Look, yeah, there's a very detailed article on our Twitter page on our website. So if someone's interested, they should definitely go give that a read, and I'd be happy to engage on that. But in terms of answering this question, we could do a podcast on this itself. So all I'll do is I'll leave you guys with an analogy, which is: would you rather renovate a home that is rented or the one you own? And I think the answer is pretty clear cut there. Okay, I'm just scrolling down because the boys are still fucking having a yak. Get a room, Vish and Hakon. Okay, that RC fella, Tony, did Czech save Guendouzi's short term, he's said a fuck up, short-term Arsenal career when he saved that Aguero shot?
Quite possibly. I mean, it's one of them mistakes that you could see coming. As soon as the ball looked like it was going to bounce, you could see what was going to happen. It was a good save. It was actually, to be fair, Czech had a very good game. I still don't want him to start next week because of the way we played, but in terms of the actual shot stopping, I thought he was excellent.
He had a good game.
But I think he quite possibly could have done. And he was also a yard from ending his own Arsenal career in the first half. When he makes that back pass, if that goes in, I'm talking about Czech here, if that goes in, which he was very close to doing, he doesn't start for Arsenal anymore. As simple as that. I dare say he doesn't start anyway, and I don't think he should if we're going to try and play like that. But if that goes in, that would definitely be the final nail in the coffin. The only issue with Guendouzi going forward for, say, next week is that, for me, I think he only played because everyone else was half fit, apart from maybe El Neni. And if you're trying to get out of a press, El Neni's not going to do that because he plays the safest pass, which is always going to be backwards. So I think Guendouzi was a product of, you're 100% fit, Torreira's 30, Xhaka's 40, and Ramsey's 60, just to put numbers on it. Yeah. So the 100% has to play.
But what about El Neni?
Well, as I said, if you're trying to get El Neni, look, Guendouzi didn't show a great attacking instinct yesterday, but he has a much better range of passing forward than El Neni does. And if you're trying to break a press, El Neni's a bit of a nightmare because he'll drop in with the centre backs but never pass the ball forward, which makes it very easy to keep the press on. because he gives you the extra man, but then where he goes backwards, you're not breaking the press, you're just containing it. So, and then he's a bit of a nightmare for that. Okay. I mean, for me, that's the reason around it, and I think that's what's going to happen next week. If Ramsey, Torreira, and Xhaka are all anywhere near 100%, I dare say they're the three that would start. But if not, and you're going to play a pressing game, you have to put legs in there. To be honest, right now, I would probably hedge my bets on it being Ramsey, Guendouzi, and Torreira next week. To be honest, because you can't watch what Xhaka done yesterday and say that deserves a place next week. You just simply can't.
Okay. Defence says Schwinn, number one, why play Czech as captain no less when your crux is based on playing out from the back, sweeper, goalkeeper? Who is he? He's not good at his feet, basically. Agree. Why Xhaka over Torreira? And Ramsey shouldn't be playing number 10, let alone a false 9 that he was playing. Probably agree with all them, don't we?
Yeah. Again, I think, we've spoken about all of these in detail. Just quickly, I was listening to the Arscast Extra earlier today, and James from Gunner Blog mentioned that he heard whispers around Colney that nobody in the camp was impressed by Leno in terms of how ready he is. This is not to say that we bought into something or someone who isn't our level, but at the moment, from what little of the preseason we've seen of him, he's not quite ready. So that's obviously the reason behind going for Czech. And of course, as you boys just touched, he had a very good game in terms of his shot stopping ability. If you cannot have an old dog play new tricks, and of course Czech has said that he's enjoyed this new challenge, but he's definitely not up to it just yet, and I don't think he will be anytime soon either, or ever. So there are certain questions that need to be asked, including the Torreira ones, and of course there's fitness in that. Ramsey at 10 was very, very strange. I'm not quite sure why we went in for that. So I would agree with him as well, but I think maybe we just need a bit more time before we decide on a goalkeeper for good, because if you want to keep playing out of the back, then Leno is the only answer. But is Leno up to it in terms of saving those shots? And at the end of the day, that's his foundational job. So I think time will tell.
You touched quickly on Ramsey. I just want to get your thoughts because I was going to touch on it later. I've seen a fair few Arsenal fans saying that Ramsey still hasn't signed a contract. He doesn't deserve his place on the team. Like blah, blah, blah. We should be doing this and that. Sit him out and whatnot. What's your thoughts, Schwinn, on Ramsey? With this contract thing, you want him playing, you don't want him playing. Do you sit him out because he hasn't signed a contract? What's your take?
Ideally, yeah, I would sit him out, but we don't live in an ideal world. We don't have the resources, and as has been pointed out over the last couple of weeks on this podcast, that we don't have someone in that same mold. We have some young players who project to be like Aaron in the future, but we're using him wrong as well. So that amplifies this question as well. If you want the best out of Aaron Ramsey, he has to play deeper. He has to be active defensively and offensively. And yesterday that was not the case. And we've of course gotten into how that affected us. But we just cannot afford to bench him at the moment. Fitness allowing or not, we need him in there because he is an important player of the team. In terms of his contracts, I obviously don't know what's going on there. It's into the season now. The transfer window, of course, in England is shut. He could still go elsewhere, but he's not kicked up a fuss from anything that I've read so far. So I'm not sure if he's going to leave this window. But again, we've really wasted our time on this one. We should have set a deadline in the summer that signed the contract. Sometime around this. If not, then we'll have to ship you out and look for replacements. And it's deja vu all over again, and it's doing my head in.
Tony, agree or disagree? Sit him out, or you play your best team?
No, play him unless you get any indication that he's not trying. Which I don't think he played well yesterday, but there was no indication he wasn't trying. And to be honest, I don't even blame him for not playing well because that position doesn't suit him. But unless you get an indication he's not trying, he's an asset to us. He is in our 11 best players. He's in our 3 best midfielders. So for me, he has to be on the pitch. You're not all you're doing by dropping him or alienating him or making him play with the reserves or whatever option you choose is just confirming that he's not going to sign a contract. Again, we don't know what's going on behind closed scenes, but imagine from August last year if we'd dropped Ozil. Look, many people might not agree with us re-signing him in January and giving him a big wage, but you sure of hell could have been sure if we'd have dropped him from August, he would be elsewhere now on a free transfer. And if we'd have done the same with Alexis, we wouldn't have got Mkhitaryan because the same thing would have happened. And we would now be short of what were our two best players at the time. We'd have no money to replace them, and we'd have been paying huge wages to people sit on the bench. And fundamentally, we wouldn't have had a team. I think unless he starts kicking up a fuss and not trying and whatnot, which I don't feel like he will, I think he has to play. Same with Jack. I know Jack was a bit different, but had last year we not played all of the players that are in the last year of the contract, we'd have had no games from Alexis, no games from Ozil, no games from Jack. I'm not sure. I can't think if there was anyone else. I mean, Santi didn't play anyway, but no games from Santi. You're just looking at, like, you're cutting your nose off to spite your face, and you're doubly hurting yourself because you're guaranteeing yourself no transfer fee.
I agree. I reckon, you play your best team. Simple as that. I get off subject so easy here. Just talking about it, because you mentioned Jack, I heard a conversation that, Jack's obviously gone and Chambers is gone on loan. And I know it's very hard to, get your magic ball out and your magic crystal ball and whatnot. If Jack and Chambers were in that team yesterday, did they make a difference?
No, yeah, again, you're saying crystal ball. Look, with Chambers, all I can say is that he would have been better playing out from the back than either of the two centre-backs that played. As I said, in all fairness, they were probably two of our better players. But for the mould we want to play, I would prefer Chambers there, if I'm honest. And again, a fit Jack. Look, no one, and yes, I'm biased, I don't care what people say, no one on this earth can tell me that Jack wouldn't have been better than Granit was yesterday. It's not a dig at Granit. We've all admitted he was shit.
I agree.
So if you're asking that, would we have been a better team with Chambers and Jack in it? Based on yesterday, what we done, of course we would have. Am I saying Jack's a better option than Granit long term? I don't know. I'm not saying definitely yes. I'm not saying definitely no. I don't know. They're different. But based on purely yesterday, and as you said, putting it in a crystal ball, and of course I'm talking in hindsight as well, because we've seen what happened.
Yeah.
But in hindsight, I would definitely have preferred them two in the team.
Yeah, okay. Okay, Schwinn, Glenn asked, results not surprising. Emery did the best he could for the first game. He knows the benchmark. What changes, if any, will Emery make for the Chelsea game?
We can probably just get our starting 11s out for next week on this question.
Well, let's try them out.
I think... Yeah, I think in terms of the back five, it stays the same with Lichtsteiner coming in for Maitland-Niles. Even if Maitland-Niles is 100% fit, which I'm not sure what his status is, I think Lichtsteiner played himself into the team yesterday, so we can probably expect him there.
How far away is Nacho? Any idea?
I was just about to say that. I'm not sure what the status on Nacho is either, but I don't think that we'd start anyone other than Lichtsteiner. Just a whim. I'm not sure how it's going to pan out. But moving forward, I can expect to see Ramsey drop deeper this time with Guendouzi and Torreira if he's available. We might see El Neni if Torreira's not there. I would imagine Granit Xhaka gets to sit this one out on the bench. And Aubameyang, Lacazette, and Mesut Ozil up top. I think we need that width. I think we'll go for a 4-3-3. Chelsea anyway like to squeeze their opponents and force you to play through your flanks. So we would need that width, and the only way I can see us doing that is with Aubameyang and Mesut Ozil wide.
Tony?
Exactly the same, but Nacho plays if fit, just to give us some more balance, just being left-footed on the left, because obviously with Aubameyang's going to be on the left, I'd imagine inverted. You don't want a winger that has to cut inside and a right back that has to cut inside at all times. Obviously on the left we're going to have Ozil cutting in and Hector on the outside, or that's the idea. So I think just to give us some balance, if Nacho's anywhere near fit, or not anywhere near, if Nacho's fit, he plays. But apart from that, my lineup's exactly the same: Torreira, Ramsey, and Guendouzi, and then Ozil, Aubameyang and Lacazette up top. The only thing is, as I said, I'd bring in Leno, just because you can't, especially Chelsea's so tight.
That was my change. I was going to say I'd bring in Leno.
Yeah, as I said, the pitch is so tight. I don't think until you're actually there, you realise how much smaller it is than like the Emirates, and it's weird sometimes. You see measurements, and look, you can't argue with a measurement. It's a fact. But some grounds, even though the pitch measurements were the same, they just feel so much tighter, and it always feels like you have less time on the ball and whatnot. But Chelsea is definitely smaller than the Emirates, and with Czech being a bit hesitant on the ball at the best of times, for me, I'd be bringing Leno in. But it's a tough one because Czech shot stopping he's looked, even in all of pre-season, he's looked, I don't know if the word sharp works for a goalkeeper, but whatever the goalkeeping version of sharp is in terms of shot stopping.
Yeah, no, I look, I want Leno to start, and I think it's, I want to see what he's like, what he's got. Bring him on against Chelsea. If Nacho's fit, I think, I'm just reading here, boys, I think he's going to be fit for the Chelsea game, whether that's any truth or not. So obviously he starts on the left. I want Lichtsteiner in place of Bellerin, but I don't think it'll happen. I agree with you, boys. I think you have to drop Granit. I think Granit, the problem we've got now is Granit's got competition. It's healthy to have competition. So I want to see the best out of Granit Xhaka, and I want him 100% fit to see the best out of him. So I say drop him this game against Chelsea, and we play Torreira and Guendouzi, even though I've fucking rattled old mate, little fucking sideshow bobble halfway through this podcast. But look, we've got to start. Give Granit a rest. Obviously, and the front four will stay the same. I don't want Ramsey playing up like he was, though. I want him dropping back more. Okay, 3 positives, Tony, that came out of the 3 positives and 3 negatives from the game. Hakon Larsson.
Oh, God. 3 positives. Socrates was better than I expected.
Mustafi
was better than I expected. But again, this argues with the point I made earlier, that I'm not saying they were good. It's better than expected, which isn't good enough for Arsenal, but this is what we've been reduced to from yesterday's game.
Yep.
And it was only 2-0. I don't know if that counts as a positive, but I really don't have anything else. Because my other one would be Guendouzi looked good for a 19-year-old. But again, all 3 of them positives go against everything I want.
I have one for you. We covered about 118 kilometers yesterday, so that shows, which was the highest covered on the weekend.
Oh,
so that at least shows effort. I mean, it shows it. I mean, look, I think it shows that the players have given it, have understood and given into this philosophy. They believe it, because that's quite high for a team. So I wouldn't necessarily count. And of course, it's something to fall back upon, and a very small factor. But
well done, boys. Well done. You ran 118 kilometres, but you lost 2-0.
To be fair, what I will say is that they, most of the time, there was a few occasions when it was off, but they pressed correctly. When it wasn't on, they didn't go, and when they did go, they went in packs. They'd done it largely at the right time. There was a couple of times where Ramsey went on his own, and I hate nothing more than a player pressing on his own. It's my biggest bugbear in football. And I remember when Sanchez used to do it, everyone used to go, "Oh, look at him trying," and it used to piss me off no end. But there was a couple of times Ramsey done it, but beyond that, I think you can see they've worked on it, and I can see it will be an asset at times. And as I think the issue may be, if Ramsey is the trigger, which I expect he probably is, he's got to be more intelligent, because the times he went on his own, there obviously wasn't a press on, but because he's the trigger, players may feel like, shit, he's gone, we have to go. So as long as they choose their moments wisely, it did look, the pressing, it looked like an organised press. Whereas at times last season and in the last 5 years, we may have pressed, but it looked like, it didn't look like a team press. It looked like men chasing a football.
You got any more?
Torreira too, I think, apart from the pass that he played into Aubameyang, which was, I think, one of the few line-breaking passes we saw in the game, I was keeping an eye on him on a tactical camera that I was watching, and he reads the game pretty well. I think a lot of players will move deeper into position or towards the ball, but I saw him making some runs that were neither. And, he was covering space and trajectories of balls and passing lanes, which I thought was pretty good. Another one that I would mention is that we didn't play Welbeck at left back, which for some reason was a worry before the game. So that's another positive, I guess.
Yeah, I do. Yeah, that's right.
Do you know the Welbeck at left back story? I was talking to someone yesterday, and what happened was they lined up and played two teams against each other to try and keep shape. And Maitland-Niles obviously started at left back with the first team, and then Lichtsteiner was already right back on the second team. So they literally had no one else. So Welbeck played there. And obviously Emery said he impressed. Whether he did or not is a different story. But it wasn't any tactical genius. It was we literally didn't have anyone else to play there when they lined up as 22.
It's fucking sad, isn't it? Fair dinkum.
Well, I mean, there's it's your third choice left back is your first choice left back. So I don't know many teams who they would play if their first three choice left backs were unavailable, and then their second choice in every other position was playing in their actual position. So it's not just like it was our fourth choice left back, because you'd say Lichtsteiner is, but he was obviously already playing at right back. Or you might say, for example, I'm not saying, but you might say, Holding may do a job there, but he was at centre back in this second team. So it was literally just like putting people in places because we didn't have enough bodies.
Every time the ball goes to Mustafi, do you boys fucking hold your breath and shit yourself?
Oh, he's a bomb scare.
Every time I see him, I think, oh, fuck. Okay.
I think yesterday Granit Xhaka was Mustafi, though, mate.
Oh, I thought Ozil was.
No retaliation.
I just sit and wait for the bloke to do something. Fuck me. Fucking die waiting for the bloke to do something. Well,
it's better than doing things wrong, I would say.
Fucking come on, he's going to do something. Yeah, we paid all this money and we're still waiting.
No more.
Schwinn. Hakon Larsen. Ramsey's strength is always his biggest weakness. That he's running, I think he should be restricted a bit more. When he ran up to the press, Guendouzi and Xhaka was all alone to cover our back four. Looked like he planned. The plan was to let him run, but it didn't work.
Absolutely. And I would add Mesut Ozil to that list because that was his responsibility, more so than Granit Xhaka, if you're being honest, because as your teammate, you should know that he doesn't have the recovery pace, as I pointed out earlier. And Tony just mentioned how the press at times was, pretty good, but at times it was pretty erratic as well. And of course, Ramsey was a trigger. Again, talking about that 118 kilometers, you have to see the quality of that running too, right? If you're just jogging around the park, then obviously you're bolstering those numbers, but you're not doing it with the right quality. So there's a lot of key aspects mentioned in this question, which are pretty spot on and pertinent. But again, we need time. This by no means is the team that you're going to field out regularly. So things will change, Hakon.
Okay. Mo Farah, he's looking good for your next signing next year, boys. We'll run 217 kilometres, Schwinn.
Yeah, being so unfair, Tez.
I'm not getting a bite out of you today, am I?
No, I want to, but you're being a bit unfair, and I know you're trying to do it deliberately, so I'm just going to let that slide.
Hakon Larsen, how many changes to the Chelsea game? We touched on that. Tony, the goals we let in was Arsenal, let alone let a player run and shoot and not tracking back home for the second one. Those things exactly was things I would like to see change to Hope. Hope Emery throws in the video player at them today. Who do you think he will hit?
I mean, the first goal is poor defending by both Hector and Guendouzi, but then if either of them lunge in and foul him, we moan about that as well. But I don't think you can. I know showing someone across the box isn't the worst thing in the world, but you can't. If you're showing them across the box, you have to be showing them into a man. You can't be showing someone into space in their position, especially someone like Sterling, who 9 times out of 10 hasn't got it in him to open his body and whip it top corner. And if he does that, you kind of just have to say, you know what, well done. So I think that was more individual errors on the first goal. And I always say that most goals, it's 3 or 4 small individual errors rather than one big error, usually. And I think that's where that came there. It started with a very poor header from Hector to start with, headed it down and centrally from a back post cross. And then they recycled the ball. And it may have been 30, 40 seconds later, but that's where it all started. I didn't even mean to criticise Hector there. That's just what happened. The second goal... The second goal, I literally, as they won the ball, I can't remember how they won the ball in their half. I said to the bloke next to me, Guendouzi looks fucked. And he literally just had no recovery run left in him. And again, it wasn't his fault at all. Lichtsteiner lost Bernardo. They had a 2-on-1 overlap on Hector where Mendy got in behind. I think Mkhitaryan was playing over that side at that point. So you can say he didn't help out his fullback. But there was just our midfield just could not get back. There was no recovery runs. And then, so it was 2-on-1 on Hector. Lichtsteiner probably spun around the wrong way. And let's be honest, it's an amazing finish.
It was a good finish.
It's a top draw finish. Yeah. But again, it's more empty in the midfield. But okay, I accept that. I've often moaned about Ramsey emptying the midfield, but he empties it at all times. You can be 1-0 up, he empties the midfield. We're chasing the game. I have no real problem with the midfield being a bit empty at that point. But City are a very good team and they're going to cause you trouble if you don't do it correctly. And that's what happened. I don't think there's a major flaw in the process based around that City goal. The only thing I may say is we probably started emptying the midfield too early. But it was on the back of us looking quite bright for a bit. Lacazette had that chance. So I think we probably thought, we've got them on the ropes and we tried to put our foot on the gas and we got caught with a sucker punch, really. But that's the only small criticism I'd have, is that we probably went for it a bit too early, because we could have kept the ball for a bit, tied them out for a further 10 minutes and then put our foot on the gas. But sometimes in football you get a feeling, and the players may have thought the City team are on the ropes. We've got a stamp on them now. And they tried to do that and they got caught out. But for me, it's not a major issue, to be honest.
Hakon asked Lichtsteiner or Bellerin at right back. He's saying he'd take Lichtsteiner. Tony?
Well, I hate Bellerin, so it's pretty easy for me. But as much as I dislike Hector, we're jumping the gun a bit. We've seen Lichtsteiner for, an hour out of position. Just because it's typical Arsenal and we're so nice, we've seen him smash someone.
I think we've all seen him at Juve. I think we've all seen him at Juve.
Yeah, but I mean, in an Arsenal show, it's a different league. It's how many players have come from Italy or from anywhere, and you've said, "Oh, I've seen them there; they're brilliant," and it's not worked out. And you got to remember, he hasn't been a starter at Juve for the last I don't know how many years, because he weren't getting anywhere near when Dani Alves was there. So you're looking at, I think people have gone on an hour of him yesterday, and he's done some things we've liked, in smashing someone straight away, and Arsenal were always too nice. So we love seeing one of our players just kick shit out of someone, which Lichtsteiner's more than happy to do. But until we see him in a run of games there, I wouldn't be saying he's the saviour. Having said that, I would prefer to see him there, just because I don't rate Bellerin. I think Bellerin's awful.
Tone, Schwinn?
It's a tough one, because I don't think Nacho will be ready. If he was, I would probably go for Lichtsteiner as well. I think Hector needs a serious kick up his arse. There's a few instances, as Tony has mentioned already, and over the pod we've gone over. But I remember watching Gary Neville doing a show with Thierry Henry once, and they were talking about some of the best Arsenal teams that Henry was a part of. And Henry kept telling Gary Neville that the amount of times Ashley Cole would beat the first winger or the first line of defense to open up, the opposition setup was invaluable to how Arsenal created down that left flank. And that's one of the reasons that they didn't go down the right a lot, even though Laurent was arguably a very good fullback as well. We don't see that nearly enough from any of our fullbacks. Kolasinac is too slow. Nacho tries to do it, but in a very Spanish way. He'll, go about his way in a give-and-go pass and try to rely on his technique instead of his pace. But Hector has that pace, and we don't see nearly enough of it. He'll pass the ball and go take up a position, up the field, but he doesn't do much with the ball. And I think with time, he's also lost his pace. I'm not quite sure how that's happened. He's just a tender 24 years old or 25. So he needs a serious, spanking, and he needs to learn how to go about this a bit better. So I'm probably in agreement with you guys there.
Yeah, Luke Steiner for me. I think Bellerin needs a rest like Granite. These guys need to fight for their positions, boys. It's not the days of being lazy and just, the old Wenger days where they can just sit around and be lazy turds on the field. It's time to fucking pull the socks up. That RC fella, we touched on this earlier. Hard work all summer. We've been hearing about hard work. It was going to be one thing fans could be certain of them with a team. I'm sorry, but I watched that game and don't feel like anyone was working hard enough to compete. More like timid and unsure. How do you guys feel? I agree with you, mate. Agree, totally. You the same, Tony?
Look, I didn't come out of that game yesterday questioning anyone's effort. I questioned quality, I questioned system, I questioned positioning.
Yeah.
But for me, when you're talking about hard work, look, many a times I've come out of Arsenal games and said, he didn't try hard enough, he didn't do this, blah, 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 he's this, he's that. Even Hector, who I've obviously had a rant about today, I still don't think he didn't try hard enough. So in terms of effort, I can't really fault anyone. And I didn't know the running stat. And I guess that kind of backs me up that whether they worked in the right way, that's a completely different story. But in terms of did they work hard enough, I have to say yes. Because, as I said, I didn't even, and I know Tez is going to have a go at this, even Ozil, who often gets accused of being lazy, again, I didn't come out thinking he could have done more in terms of effort. I thought he was awful as a performance, but I didn't think he could have ran a bit more. He didn't really try. That didn't come to my mind. So I can't question the effort, to be honest.
Okay. I'll leave it be. Schwinn, you said the pretty much similar though earlier, didn't you?
Yeah, I will be a bit more critical, not of the system, because I think we all recognize that it will take time to bed in, but the quality. I keep coming back to those late chances, and even initially, towards the latter part of the game, you rely on some of the momentum you've established during the game, and there wasn't any for us to rely on. But even during the game, I felt that whenever we got that odd chance to move up the field and start a break, let alone finish the break, but even to start it, it just wasn't there. And Mesut Ozil was a key culprit in this. Mkhitaryan was not very effective. Aubameyang tried to make those runs, but either they went unspotted, or the runs weren't on the same page as some of the other playmakers. Ramsey tried, but wasn't good enough. And the system can be given time, but not the quality, not for me. And that was one of the reasons I was very, very fed up after the game, because, as you guys said, it was just 2-0. It could have been worse, but it wasn't. And at the end of the game, 10 minutes to go, we had a real chance of stealing something from that game, and we failed. And that's one of the things I had pointed out in the preseason, that I want to see how we react. I want to see at the end of the game how we make those late surges to try and rescue something, especially against the big teams. And we failed to deliver. First game of the season, you expect players to be fit, and they showed that. But you also expect them to deliver, and that wasn't there yesterday, and that for me is not acceptable.
I'm going to go a different path. When you look at Arsenal and you look at our team, and you think, how many stars are in that team in Arsenal? How many stars do we have in our really good quality players? And I look and think, Aubameyang, he's outstanding. I look at the rest and I think, mediocre. We just haven't got. We just haven't got the team.
I'm not going to bite on that.
No, mate, we haven't got the team as City have, and that's what I'm getting at. We haven't got.
No, that's a different thing, though, isn't it?
$300 million players. We look at our team. We've got Ramsey, who's been around, Ozil, who's done nothing for 2 years, Mkhitaryan, who Man United said he was a reject, Granit Xhaka, who, fuck me, played like a busted ass. We've got a 19-year-old kid who may shine a bit of light. We've got Bellerin, who we ride off fucking week in, week out because he's absolutely useless. We've got Mustafi, who, we're all shitting ourselves when he gets the ball. Socrates, this old cunt who we think, he's going to be a legend because that's all we could afford. And we play Maitland-Niles as left back because we've got nobody else. So I look at our team and I think, who's the quality players there? As opposed to a Man City or a Liverpool, what they've signed at the moment. Yeah, but I mean, we're just not on par.
There's two. There's two things there. Yes, we're nowhere close to those levels. Especially City, right? But there's a massive influx of investment there. Pep has spent £1 billion or something like that in the last 4 years or whatever, something outrageous like that. Liverpool have also spent a packet this summer. We are not at that level, but at the same time, you can look at other teams who've done well over the years and relied on their system. Individual quality does not win you games. The system that extenuates and extends this quality wins you games and wins you titles. We're a bit too early for that sort of a reaction, in my opinion. We will get there. It's just, will we get there under this manager, or will we? And how much time will it take? I think those are the questions that need answering.
I think we'll get there with this manager in about 3 transfer windows. This team needs a real big.
I would agree with you. And let's be honest, that's how much time it's taken someone like a Pep Guardiola.
Mate, Klopp was the same. His first season, it wasn't a great season. Pep, his first season wasn't great. They've built something over time, and we're going to be the same.
That's right. So it takes time. It absolutely takes time. But at the same time, to not call Mesut Ozil world class, mate, you got an agenda there.
2 years ago, yes, Schwinn. 2 years ago, yes.
No, but you have to see who he's around, right, Taz? I mean, even with someone like a Giroud, he was able to put up 18, 19 assists or something like that over a season. You have to put players in positions that they're going to succeed in. Yesterday he didn't, because he was in a more defensive role. And to his credit, he did pretty well with that. But that doesn't excuse his offensive output, which was absconding yesterday. So I'm with you there. But to completely shun him and not call him world class, I think that's a bit over the top, if I'm honest.
Okay, let's move on. Hakon Larson, how many transfer windows do we need to build a solid team? He says 3 to 4. This with both mentality, player quality and adjustments to tactics. Tony?
Depends how much we spend. I think it took Guardiola 3 or 4 and £1 billion. So I don't know how people magically think, with our 100 million a window, if that 3 or 4 is going to take us to their level. It's just not going to happen. And look, let's be honest, and this isn't anything against Emery, because he doesn't do the buying and selling, but if anyone looked at that team yesterday and didn't see that we are absolutely crying out for a natural winger, they need to be sacked. And look, that's not a dig at Emery, because as I said, it's not his job. But unless we get the people buying the right players, look, nothing against Guendouzi, and I think Tez has given him a bit more of a hard time than he probably deserves on this podcast. But at what point did someone buying him, and I said this to you guys in our WhatsApp group last week, at what point did whoever buying him not think, no, what we actually need is a winger. We don't need another midfielder. And I'm not saying that Guendouzi is not brilliant or he's not going to be brilliant, but we need to address our needs, not address what's cheap. And that's what we seem to be doing. Socrates, as good as I think he played yesterday, didn't address our needs too much. We needed a centre-back, probably not in his mould, but he was cheap. We just cut corners everywhere, and people keep going, in 3 or 4 windows, it'll all be fine, but it won't if we keep cutting corners. And to expect City levels, because they done it in 3 windows, with arguably the greatest manager on the planet and an unlimited checkbook. You look at that City team yesterday, and I know Tez just touched on it, but there wasn't a single player on that pitch that cost them less than 20 million. And then their subs were Sane 50 million, De Bruyne 50 million, and Jesus 32 million. So you're looking at, they bring 130 million on from the bench. With us, we had over 50 million. We had Aubameyang start and Lacazette on the bench. And that's it. Whereas you look at them, they're bringing De Bruyne and Sane, both 50 million players, off the bench. Sterling was verging on 50 million. Both of their centre-backs were 50 million. Their right-back was 50 million.
When you buy Mahrez for 60 million, and here's your depth.
Well, that's what I'm saying. You look at their team, Ederson. You look at Ederson, 31 million. Walker over 50 million, Laporte and Stones both over 50 million. Mendy was in the 20s to 30s. Fernandinho was 25, but that was 7 years ago now, I think. So it's
David Silva wasn't even there.
Yeah, David Silva didn't play. They bring De Bruyne on, who's 50 million. They start Mahrez, who's 50 million. They start Sterling, who's 50 million. Aguero was 30 million 7 years ago. You look at that compared to what we're playing with. To be honest, I think anyone's deluded if they think 3 windows we're going to be at their level. Mm-hmm. Because they're not going to stop spending. So even if Kroenke takes over and says open checkbook and we get that for 3 windows, that doesn't mean their checkbook's going to close. So they're going to carry on doing what they're doing. And by the way, Bernardo was also 40 plus million who started yesterday and was very good. So you look at, as I said, not one of their players. I think the cheapest player they had on the pitch was Fernandinho at 25 million. You look at ours and we had 3 players more expensive than their cheapest player. And I know value doesn't, or transfer price doesn't necessarily equate to ability, but it's just not a level playing field. So, right, as I said, and that's for me, 3 windows, I think people are dreaming, to be honest. And I'm not optimistic anyone. I wish it was 1 window, but I just can't see it at all.
And that's where my point was on superstars. I wasn't, mate, I'll support the team until their fucking cows come home. But at the end of the day, I look at our team and I go, well, they're not superstar teams. Like, we're going to struggle against a Manchester City. I'm sorry.
Well, yeah, I mean, look, for me, and I know you mentioned Liverpool, but for me, they're not. I don't think they're a superstar team. You look at Addison is expensive. It's here or there. How good he's going to be, we don't know yet.
Yeah.
Trent Alexander-Arnold, youth product, and let's be honest, not brilliant. Joe Gomez the same. Andy Robertson, 7 million. So you can do it without spending huge on every player, and you don't need to be a team of absolute superstars. Mane, when they brought him, everyone was laughing that they thought he was overpriced. The same with Firmino. Salah, a lot of people thought he was overpriced, and he's done well. Keita's obviously just come in, but yesterday they started James Milner. They got him on a free. And who's the other one? Wijnaldum. I think they've got him from a relegated Newcastle. So you don't have to spend big on every team. You don't have to have superstars all over the place.
I think it was the 180 they spent this year, though, wasn't it? About 180.
Yeah, but you look at yesterday. Yeah, you look at yesterday's game, and only Keita started.
Yeah. Alisson.
Alisson. Yeah, but Fabinho was on the bench, and obviously your fat mate was on the bench.
Oh, Shaqiri, that's right. Hey, fuck me. Fucking Shaqiri. He would have made a fucking big difference yesterday. It's by the summer, boys, by the summer. I'm telling you now. Okay. If you want to know, comment that I'm deluded at Schwinn. Oh, I think it is.
Yep, that's exactly what it is. At Schwinn. Nothing else. At Schwinn.
Okay, Schwinn. Vish is asking, City easily invaded our press and countered with a lightning speed, unlike Liverpool, who are masters of the press. We are like soft, floppy cocks. Do you have the personal and the effectively press, or should Emery find a better system with the players he has to work with?
Too early. I'm sorry. It's just way too early to answer that. I think we have some of the personnel to constitute an effective press. And let's be honest, half of the press is dictated by positional play. You don't need everyone pressing, right? You need triggers and you need people who go off of those triggers. But that doesn't mean all 10 players, outfield players, are going in for the press. Even someone like Granit Xhaka, if he's positionally placed in the right position, then he can be conducive to a press. So I don't know if it's about finding a better system, because we haven't seen enough of Emery's team yet to really understand the system. But going off of one game, I don't think we should go for a massive overreaction just yet.
Can I butt in with that one as well? In the I think our press. Look, they did bypass it at times, but that's always going to happen. It's not going to. Press isn't going to work every time, but we caught them out and won the ball high up a hell of a lot of times. And this is where my issue with the quality is on play. And Schwinn's probably gone more over the top than me about it, that our quality was poor. But the press worked. We won the ball out about 30 yards from their goal at least 5 times, just from the top of my head. And it was probably more. So I don't think you can blame the press and say they easily played around it. I bet if you watched the Champions League game last season where Liverpool beat City 3-0, battered them, deserved a win, no one could argue about it, I bet they didn't win the ball as high up as many times as we did. this is where the issue of quality comes into it. But I don't think the press was to blame at all yesterday. Yes, they played around it at times, but they are the best team at avoiding the press because Ederson can play the ball 70 yards onto a postage stamp. I've never seen a keeper with a passing range like it. So when you do press really well, at times he just thinks it over everyone and they spin in with Bernardo or Guerrero and then they build the play from midfield. So, of course, at times they are going to evade it. But I think on the whole, we pressed really well and we did win the ball high up a hell of a lot of times. And I think if you rewatch it, you will realise that we actually won the ball high up a lot of times. And as I said, this is where quality comes into it, which is the most disappointing thing, that the quality wasn't there.
Okay, that RC fella says, Tony, we saw a lot of fans leave the stadium early yesterday. Assuming you were at the game, can you give us a quick rundown on the atmosphere before, during and after the game, please?
Look, the Emirates crowd is always very reactionary. So when there's a thundering challenge or we're on top and we look like we've got the other team on the back foot, there's always quite a loud roar and we're always behind the team. But what we don't do, and it's probably been my biggest problem with Arsenal fans probably ever since I've been going, is that we don't pick the team up off the floor. When the team are flying, we fly with them. When the team are down, we stand there and moan. As a fan base, I don't say I do it personally or any one person does it, but as a whole, that's what happens. Look, I said earlier about leaving earlier. I'll never understand it till the day I die. I will not understand why you go to a football game to watch 80 minutes and leave the last 10 regardless of sort of what's happening in the game. Where do you really have to be with 10 minutes to go that's important? I'll never understand it. In terms of atmosphere before the game, to be honest, I don't know because I was in the pub. I got to the ground with about 5 minutes to kick off. Well, I got into my seat at about 5 minutes to kick off. Loud cheer when players came out. You'd expect that. New manager, new regime, first game of the season. Always going to be loud. But as I said, when we looked like we was pressing them, the press is always well received. When a team presses well, it always gets the fans on side and you get loads of roars when you're nicking the 50-50s. But as I said with Arsenal, when we're on the back foot, we as a fan base do absolutely nothing to help.
Okay.
We're actually probably more of a hindrance. As I said earlier, we're cheering ironically every time Cech gets the ball after he makes his mistake, or every time say Mustafi just picking on a player gets the ball, we're like, oh fucking hell, Mustafi again. Doesn't do anyone anything. It might be true. I probably think that, but I'm not going to fucking shout out loud when if everyone else joins in, the player can hear it. How's he going to feel about that? So yeah, I mean, look,
I'm shutting my mouth, because I don't want to get in trouble. So I'll zip it. So we have a lot of UK
fan base
listeners.
is a joke, and look, people can come at me as much as they want. I'm there every week. I know exactly what the fan base is like. So, and look, if any one of our followers or listeners actually, and I'm not criticising what I am, but if you're one of them people that leaves 10 minutes early every week, can you please tell me why and where you have to go that's so important regardless of the kickoff time, or what you're going home to that means the last 10 minutes of games don't matter? Because I'm sure you probably go home and check what the score was of the game you've just left. Surely you'd just rather be there. I actually don't get it. I'd love to actually know. I mean, obviously no one will come back to me because I've pretty much criticised them for the whole show. But I would really like to know.
At
I don't get it.
_talk.
That's the one.
Got it. Okay. That RC fella, I think we pretty much touched on this, Schwinn. We looked really flat and off the pace of the game from the outset. Players that have been training for weeks didn't seem to perform much better than those that have recently come back. I can only deduct. Anyway, City made us look like via their superior output. Thoughts? Yeah, look, we did touch on that. If you're looking for flat, I'll tell you what, check out Spurs, mate. They were flat. Fuck, they look. Yeah, I know they won.
I was just about to say that.
Really
Tony just
flat.
gave us credit. Yeah, absolutely. I mean, Tony just gave us credit for some of the pressing instances, and I think that's very fair. So, you have to see the quality of the opposition. But if you look on the flip side, I think Tottenham looked pretty knackered, and I think Tez, you mentioned on our WhatsApp chat that come December, considering they don't have enough depth, they might be really struggling. So, yes, the result didn't go our way, but I think there is stuff to look forward to this season. It's not the season's not done yet. It's just barely started.
Okay, MAA Gunner, why didn't we put all our eggs in one basket and go for Dembele when there were plenty of other wingers? When there are plenty of other wingers around, why didn't we put our eggs in one basket?
I'm pretty sure, doesn't the question say why did we?
Well, that's what I thought.
Yeah.
Why did we? Why did we put? Okay, so why did we put all our eggs in one basket and go for Dembele when there are plenty of other wingers around?
I don't think we did. Is the answer. I know Kike Marin came out and said we had made 100 million deadline day bid for him, but then he changed his story about 4 times. And first he reported 100 million bid, then he reported 10 million loan, and then 90 million at the end of the season. Then he reported that it was Barcelona left the decision in Dembele's hands, and Dembele said no. Then he reported that they didn't even tell Dembele, and he was annoyed that he didn't even get the option. Let's be honest, I don't believe a word of it, if I'm honest.
Yeah, okay.
I don't believe it at all. So, in answer to the question, I don't think we did.
Well, name me another winger who we could have gone for.
Leon Bailey.
How much would he worth?
40, probably, maybe 50.
Okay. What about you, Schwinn?
There's options. It's not as if there's no wingers in world football. Christian Pavon, Chucky Lozano.
Oh, yeah, Pavon. I forgot about him, yeah.
There's people out there. There is players out there. Are any of them what you'd call top class or virgin on it, like Dembele? No, but we don't have anyone. So I've said it a million times. I would have signed Adama Traore. Is he the best? No. Can he actually play on the wing? Yes. So in games where you need an out-and-out winger, you have one. Because now we just do not have that option.
You know who I would have signed, don't you?
Fat kid.
13 million. 13 million. Come back and warm us all season, boys. You agree, don't you, Schwinn?
I'm just going to say yes. There's been enough adversity today on this podcast.
I wish I could mute his microphone. I love you, mate. Okay. Cosman Buta. Also, Tezza, how did you find Shaka's performance? I've already touched on that. Fucking pathetic. I'm just about done with this today. Alex, Tez will hate this question. Yes, throw it away. He'll hate this question, but what are the chances we see Tora and Guendouzi at the midfield? Well, you boys said that's who'll probably... We all did, didn't we? That's who'll start next week, we think. Granite, I think... Yeah, we all said that. Is Van really a diamond eye? Says James Rowe. We could have got a better defender than Socrates, and Mickey has had more games than a good since joining last January, although Guendouzi is showing lots of promise. Tony?
Well, Mickey was nothing really to do with him. It was who Wenger tried to sign him way before Sven was at the club, and let's be honest, this is all he was offered for Sanchez. So it was better taking someone of value than nothing. So in terms of Mickey... I mean, I don't disagree that he's had probably more quiet games than good, but I don't think that has anything to do with Sven. The same way I don't really think Aubameyang was anything to do with Sven. For me, that's not scouting. That's he's a good player. Everyone knew he was a good player. In terms of... Look, it's difficult because you don't know who he's seen. Like, you don't know if Socrates was really anything to do with him.
I would have been, surely.
Yeah, you assume so. But then again, we don't know what the budget was.
Yeah, that's right.
So if someone, whoever's above him, has said, "Look, we've got 20 million to spend on a defender," you're probably looking at... I mean, probably not the best, but he's got to be in the top 10 defenders you could have got for 15 million, I would guess. So, I mean, there's so many factors come into play. I mean, what we can judge him on is players like Guendouzi, and if he keeps doing that in the future, or I mean, if Guendouzi even turns out to be good, we don't know. I remember Denilson's first 5 games. The kid looked unbelievable, and he wasn't. He was very far from unbelievable. So we need to see him have people like Guendouzi that go on and have a career and become these top players. But we need to see that more often. I think that's what you have to judge him on, not players like Socrates. And when you don't know what their budget is. I think he's always been known for finding young players and turning them into gems. And I think you have to judge him more on that than anything else.
Red Fulcrum says, do you guys think you receive so many knee-jerk reaction type questions? Peace. In your opinion, what kind of game plan AFC use against Chelsea? Possession or hit on the break? Schwinn.
Lovely question. I love the first part of the question too, because it's not just the type of questions. I think it's it's just being an Arsenal fan and just being a fan in general. Because I was pretty overt in my reactions as well. So fair play there. But in terms of the second half of the question, I think we'd stick with the quick build up sort of play. Yes, we would like to keep possession as much as we can, but we're not going to have possession for the sake of it. And Chelsea, at the same time, likes to move the ball quickly up the field. So I think it's going to be pretty frantic. It's a London derby, of course. And as Tony mentioned, the stadium's pretty packed in, and it all feels very, very erratic in its atmosphere. So I'm looking for quality. That's my first thing, because, as I said, structure takes time, system takes time, and the quality yesterday was not at all close to what we're capable of. So I'm looking for much more precision, and I'm looking for a clinic. How the game will pan out, I think, is going to be pretty 50-50 in terms of the possession. But I don't think we're necessarily going to sit back as we did against City and try to hit on the break more often than not.
Okay. Savish? Yeah, we'll run with that. I know it will. Savish? Savish, yeah, see, I got it. I know it'll take time to implement Emery's ideas, but if he's going to play Ramsey as a false nine and Ozil in the midfield three, he has failed to assess the players' strengths already. But Guendouzi and Xhaka should never be in the same team. Too similar and too many mistakes in one team. Makes an interesting point. He goes on to say, I'm not going to write any players off from that game, though, because the whole... Fuck, that's what I've done the whole podcast, but anyway. Because the whole team was not good, and what was up with our passes up front, why did we see a lack of communication? And we did touch on that quickly. Do you want to add anything to that question, Tony?
No, it is an interesting point, and obviously no one wants to criticise Emery this early on, but you've got to wonder what he's seen to make him think Ramsey's a 10 and Ozil's a right winger. In a sense, I don't overly disagree with Ozil playing right wing if we would have gone a flat three. But when if you're gonna play someone in 10, it has to be Ozil. I don't even think this should be a consideration of anyone else. So you do have to wonder, and again, it probably is a criticism, but what has Emery seen, or what was he thinking? I would love, and these are things you never find out, but I'd love to just talk to him and say, why? Just tell me why. I'm not going to argue with you, I'm not going to question you, but I would love to know your reasoning.
Yep. Okay.
One thing I do want to give Emery credit for, and it's hard to give credit in a game like this, making the change after 50 or 52 minutes, whatever it was something we've been crying out for years and not seen. And it did work out in a sense, because Lacazette changed the game. But I think he does deserve credit for being proactive, whereas we've always, since 1996, been reactive. So a small bit of credit for Emery there, when I feel like I've kind of hammered him for most of the podcast.
Could that be fitness related, though? Sorry, Tess, but right. Could that be because Aaron wasn't 100%?
I imagine so. I'd imagine that was the exact reason, but still not going like for like and trying to change the game and be more positive. I think he probably does deserve a bit of credit for it, to be honest.
Okay.
He could have quite easily bring on El Neni or bring on Torreira.
Yeah, true. Sci-fi FQ. Do we really bid for...
What?
Sci-fi FQ. Do we...
That's not real, is it?
I don't know. SYAFIQ.
Safik.
Yeah.
What the fuck were you on about?
do we really bid? Did we really bid for Dembele? We don't believe we did. And why didn't we get him? Because we already touched on that. And why is Ramsey still didn't sign the damn thing? I already touched on that too. What do we got? At COYG Chat. What would you consider by the end of the season to have been successful season for Emery? First season in charge. Top 4, Europa League winners, or another measure? I'll start with you first, Tony.
Well, both of them would be successful. But I think anything else is not a success, and that doesn't mean failure. I think if we come 5th or 6th, it's maybe as expected, to be honest. And so if we come above that, it's a success. And if we become below that, or we go out in the group stage Europa League or whatever, then it's a failure. I think we live too much in a world where everything is a pass or fail mentality. And I don't think it's not always a yes or no. And as I said, I think success would be either of the 2 options listed, top 4 Europa League winner, and other stuff would be probably par for the course unless we come below 6th.
What if you get 5th in the league, you make the Europa League final and get beat?
No, not for me. Okay. It's not a failure. It's just par for the course. That's what I'm saying. I think too often we live in a pass or fail mentality, whereas as much as I hate golf, I think they've got it right. You can be over par, you can be equal, or you can be over par. And I think that's how we need to look at football, where there is an option that's just kind of as expected, not what we wanted, but not a failure.
Okay. Schwinn, you agree?
Yeah, I definitely agree with that sort of approach. I will say that, as I've said before, that it's not just about, I don't want to sound pacifist, but it's not just about results. We've seen a stagnation over the last few years, and I want to see how we respond, how the team changes its fabric under Emery. And we've seen a game today, and we're going to see a few more initial games. Let's say the first 5 games. I want to compare those first 5 games to the last 5 games, and I bet it's going to be very different. Not just based on the opposition. I don't even know which our last 5 games are, if I'm honest. But in terms of how we play, how we react, there's going to be a lot of changes, and we can progress that way without really breaking from 6th position or 5th position. And I'm looking for those intangibles as well, not just those intangibles, but as well.
Okay. Anthony Shepherd, Schwinn Ozil, where was he? Fucking who knows. How many times does our so-called best player, he's on agreement with me, not turn up in the big games? Luxury player. Keep up the good work, guys. Good listen. Tez is the best. Schwinn?
Did you really say Tez is the best?
Nah.
No one has ever said that.
I'll throw it in, lighten up the mood.
No, Anthony's been pretty positive, and he's been appreciative, so I'll go light on this. But, we've touched on this before. I don't know if I should regurgitate everything. Should I?
No,
Go as much as you want, mate.
Go, yeah. Get into it, mate.
Look, you have to put players in positions where they succeed. And for everything Ozil did yesterday, there was a lot wrong with him, right? I think I've been pretty critical of him. I think, Tez, you will agree with that today, right?
What was I? Sorry? Critical?
I think I've been pretty critical of him today, right?
Oh, yeah.
More than often.
You have been, yeah. Look, you've jumped off the fence, which is a plus. I'm really happy you've done that. I've even jumped off the fence with Granite. So, we see it as we see it.
Yeah, so I think we've been objective with certain players, and especially the players we like. But I wouldn't necessarily say he goes missing in big games. I know there is this mentality, but we also have to see that in big games as a team, we haven't been good recently. And things will probably change, maybe not this season, but sometime soon, I'm hoping, at least. So I agree he was not there yesterday. I agree he was not maximized in terms of his potential and what he can do. And when he did have the ball, he did fail. I'll go as far as saying that. But I give him time, because if you're giving Emery time with this new team and the way he's going to set up, then we should give our best players time as well, shouldn't we?
We should. And I'm just going to touch quickly, though. And as a fan, when you're down 1-0, you look for your best players, and you look for them best players to bring you out of the shit. And yesterday, you're looking on that field at your best players, and you're thinking, nothing's happening. And I
would agree. Yeah.
That is probably what we look at. Granite, Ozil, Aubameyang.
Cheeky.
What can you... Anyway. Righto. Tony hasn't got a favourite player no more. I reckon it's that Guendouzi, but to be honest.
No, we sold ours, so now I'm just going to call everyone a cunt every week. But we didn't even sell ours.
He does have grey hair, though. He does look like a warrior running around in that pitch, doesn't he?
Who? That
Guendouzi.
I fucking hate his hair.
What?
Shave it off.
That's jealousy from having none yourself.
I can't stand bloke with hair like that. But I'm bald. When you're as bald as me, mate, you get jealous. Are you concerned?
That's as bald gets, right?
Yeah, but I'm not bald. I shave.
That's what I was saying, mate.
That's my story. I'm sticking with it. Okay. Are you concerned about how quickly we can catch up to the other top 5 teams, Tony, in terms of squad depth? With Chelsea, Spurs, United all to strengthen, do we need too much change to catch up to them over the time? Fans will stay patient with Emery.
I think this is probably one of the most reactionary tweets of the day, because he started off by saying Tottenham strengthened when they quite famously signed absolutely nobody.
You know, it's the first time in Premier League history that no team has made a signing in the summer.
Since the transfer window got brought in, yeah. Yeah, so, I mean, I think it's reactionary tweet. As I said, I think City are in a league of their own. I think Liverpool are trying to join that league, and the rest of us are all in the same league. So I wouldn't say the other 5 are leaving us behind. Oh, yeah, the other 5 are leaving us behind. I wouldn't say that they've all strengthened, because, as I said, Tottenham really haven't. So, look, how long it's going to take us to catch up is another crystal ball question, which I don't have an answer to. But I don't feel like other clubs have done more than us. We didn't lose anyone first team, really, or a starter, and we've added people that potentially are starters. So you could argue that we've, at least in terms of squad quality, we've at least closed the gap on Tottenham. So to say that they're getting further away, as I said, I think it's probably just a reactionary question straight after the game, to be honest.
Well, he's gone on and said, I've just realised, not that we'd sack Emery, he just doesn't like the negativity.
Yeah.
So, yeah.
Yeah, as I said, it's just, it's reactionary, and I was reactionary after the game. I'm sitting here saying this nearly 24 hours after, and you're in a different mindset, and I'm still pretty pissed off 24 hours after, so I can't imagine the type of things I would have been questioning at the final whistle if I was in that state.
Fucking God help us if we lose against Chelsea. We might not even fucking podcast. Might take a week off. Brad says, would you guys play Xhaka in big games against teams that press high? I personally wouldn't, as he seems to take too many touches off the ball and either gets tackled off the ball or gives it away. I would start Torreira against Chelsea over him. Schwinn.
Go on, Tez. Have a crack at it.
Oh, well, look, we've already said Guendouzi and bloody Torreira. Like I've already said 1,000 times on this podcast today that Granit has competition. He needs a rest. He needs to pull his socks up, get his match fitness up, and then we'll have this discussion. Until, like Tony said, he might, I don't know, how fit is he? How fit's half the time?
I mean, I would answer that in a different way. I wouldn't look specifically at Chelsea next week, but saying should we start Xhaka in big games? Look, the sharpest, when Xhaka's sharp, he's a big asset in big games because his forward passing is very, very good. And there's always this image of him that he can't pass the football, which I'll never understand. So I think he is a big asset. And I know he's got a reputation for being caught out, and it does happen a lot. But I think of some of Xhaka's best games, especially last year, were I mean, I don't know, are you going to call AC Milan a big game? Because he was excellent in the San Siro. He scored against Liverpool. He scored against Chelsea in the Cup, and he was excellent. We drew with Chelsea away.
He was against Tottenham too.
Yeah, so I don't think look, he was shite yesterday. I'm not trying to deflect that. But I don't think big games are particularly Granit's issue, to be honest. So would I start him next week? No. But in a wider term thing, should he be dropped for all big games? For me, also no.
No, I agree. I just want them all to get their fitness up, and then we can really look at this team, boys. because the team yesterday just was not ready. We've seen videos on Facebook for months leading up to this. We've been hanging for it. And from I can't say the players didn't turn up, because as Tony said, they tried their fucking heart out. But I don't know whether the system stunk, the tactics stunk, and the players weren't fit. It was just a combination of everything that just... And as well, playing a very good City team. And when you're playing a very good City team, they talk about Emery and his video shit. I would think that he would have sat down for 3 days watching video footage of City, but I did not see that on the pitch yesterday. It just, for me, we just didn't seem ready. Brad's also goes on, why, I never realised this, but what you boys answer it, why do you guys think managers drop Lacazette in big games? Wenger did it last season and Emery did it yesterday. When he comes on in big games, the team usually play better. He's got a point. Schwinn?
Well, I don't think Lacazette is dropped in big games. I mean, from off the top of my head, and correct me if I'm wrong here, boys, but last season the only one he was dropped for was City, and I think it was because it was very early on in the season. This season, I think it was more about competition from Aubameyang and having a structure behind Aubameyang that is defensively solid. So it was nothing against Lacazette. It was more so for Aubameyang. Am I off here, Tony, with my recollection from last season?
He never started against Liverpool away or Tottenham away. He didn't start in any of the aways. He started at Chelsea. United, I'm not sure if he was still out injured or just back. I think he was actually back by then. But we had Europa League a few days later. So he was definitely back by then. But we had Europa League a few days later. But he didn't start away against any of them except for Chelsea.
That was a fitness thing, though, wasn't it, at the start of last season, we'll say?
No. He the only one he missed through injury was none of them. Actually, okay. He was fit for all of them.
Okay.
He wasn't fit for City at home in the league or the cup final, but he was fit for all of the aways and didn't play. For me, I mean, I saw this question come in yesterday, and I've said this a lot of times. I think he plays too far away from the goal. He wants to join in play, and when a team press like City do, and Liverpool to an extent, it makes the pitch way too small, and it makes it very easy to press. And he's not the quickest, so he's not going to come short and spin in and run in behind and scare the living daylights out of the defenders like Aubameyang probably will. So I think that's probably why, where his greatest assets, his link up, he tries to come too short, and it makes pressing so easy because they only have to cover 20. If he comes to the halfway line and say our defenders are on the edge of our own box, that makes the whole pitch only 30 yards. And because he doesn't have that threat of running in behind, unless the team have really slow defenders, but none of the other top big teams do. You look at Rudiger's quick, Van Dijk's quick enough, Davinson Sanchez at Tottenham's very quick, United, Bailey's quick, and City probably the slowest of them, to be honest. But Laporte is still quick. And so he's not going to outrun any of them. So you end up playing the game in a 30-yard space in our own half. You don't mind playing in a 30-yard space when it's in the other team's half, but in your own half, you really don't want to do that. I think that's probably why Lacazette doesn't get the nod in these games. And it's why I actually wanted him to play with Aubameyang yesterday, because when he did do that, Aubameyang could spin in behind and still have that threat. But I think, for me, that's the reason I wouldn't play him in them games, especially not on his own.
Okay. Listen, that's all the questions that have come through on Twitter. Now, we do have a couple of questions on Skype from... what's his name, Schwinn? Moddov?
Maddie. Let's go with Maddie.
Maddie, okay. So he sent a few on Skype. My question to Tony was, Ramsey substituted tactical or to avoid more injury?
Obviously, Schwinn touched on this earlier. I would guess that he wasn't 100% fit. He's obviously been carrying injury, and that was why he was taken off. As I said, I think Guendouzi is the only midfielder in the squad, and maybe El Neni that was anywhere near 100%. And I think that might even be a case of why Ramsey played so high up. I'm hoping the reason he played high up is because they thought he didn't have the legs in him to go all out because of the injury he's been carrying. Obviously, he pulled out of the Chelsea game during the warm-up. and then he didn't play against Lazio. So I'm hoping that Emery's thought we need him in the team because he's so important for the press, but he's not fit enough to play in his normal role, so we'll shoehorn it in, which isn't great. But if we have been working on the press so much with him as a trigger, it kind of would have been horrible to go in with 1 day's notice with someone else as the trigger.
Okay, Schwinn, he's asked you a question. Was Ramsey playing so up in the field created vacuum which caused pressure on Guendouzi and Xhaka?
I wouldn't necessarily call it a vacuum because that implies negativity. I think Ramsey was a trigger, and I think he did pretty well more often than not. In the few occasions that he didn't, I would not put Xhaka in this list. I would put Mesut Ozil instead and say that it was their role to be covering that position that he vacated, and there was not enough recognition or communication to do that, as discussed before. So, the press has been good, but it will take time to perfect, and even then it will not be 100%. So it will take time, but yes, there was a lot of gaping holes, and Tony, of course, sits right behind Emery, so he probably could see the space between our attacking line and our midfield, and I'm suspecting it was quite wide at times. Is that right, Tony?
Yeah, I mean, this is one of my issues because people keep saying, he's left Guendouzi and Xhaka exposed. But to be honest, if you've got two holding midfielders virtually, I mean, they shouldn't need any more cover. I think people get very confused about a press. A press doesn't mean every player presses, because otherwise a long ball over the top would kill you every time. And I think, and because I've seen a lot of people say, Xhaka's going to get killed by the press because he's not quick enough. But he shouldn't be anywhere near a press. So you get your front three to go, probably Ramsey, and then maybe one other. And then the others sit behind that. So if your press is broken, you still have insurance. That's the idea. So, I mean, the question obviously asks which caused pressure on Guendouzi and Xhaka, but as I said, there still should be 6 of them back, 7 including the keeper back, and 4 pressing. So I don't think, I mean, if they can't handle an attack when there's 7 men behind the ball, we might as well give up and start again, get new players.
Okay, one more. He says, Czech made some great saves, but do you think he can be a part of the team, long-term team plans? Emery way of playing, he was too uncomfortable when we were building from the back. We touched on that, and if we're going to play from the back, it's got to be Leno. So, just reading our Facebook, Schwinn. Interesting comments there.
Yeah, go on.
So I think Savvy, because he was looking after our Twitter and Facebook, he's mentioned we've been very poor when it comes to our finishing, need to be more clinical. So it was yesterday during the game. Some bloke says, not unless our new coach has the guts to bench one lazy, negligent and careless Ozil.
Look, everyone's got their opinions. Some have wrong opinions, some have right. That's all I'm going to say.
Well, the opinions are like arseholes. Everyone's got them, and they're often full of shit.
I wouldn't.
Let's be really honest about it.
Honest, I wouldn't bet.
Look, if you start taking feedback from Facebook seriously, we might as well just pack up and go home, right?
No, I mean, look, let's be honest. There's a lot to criticise Ozil about yesterday, and for Schwinn to criticise him, he wasn't good. But if you're calling him lazy after yesterday's game, watch something else.
Yeah.
As I said, you can question. Usually, I would say, you can maybe question his effort or his intensity, but his quality on the ball is usually good. I think yesterday was the complete opposite. So if someone commented and said, look, he can't pass the ball, I'd say, okay, that's reactionary on that game, but based on that 90 minutes, okay, fair enough. If someone says he didn't try yesterday, I don't know what they watched. And I'm not one to particularly defend him.
I agree totally. I'm just going to ask you boys, though, what was it, though? Like, we've seen Granit Xhaka have a shocking game. We've seen Ozil, as we said, he didn't play his best game. And I'd even stretch to Mkhitaryan and Aubameyang didn't even play that well. And so what was it, boys? Was it the chemistry or just fitness? What do we put it down?
I'll take a crack at I'll take a crack at this one real quick, and I think it's a dual aspect. It was us being relatively new with this whole new system and regime, and with City just being too fucking good. I mean, I think it's the perfect storm in that way.
Tony, you agree?
I think some shape, some fitness. Look, I mean, Ozil, as I said, it was in front of me, so I maybe noticed it more than others. But Ozil spent, I'd say, a good 70% of the first half, 40 yards from our own goal, trying to mark Mendy and Sterling because Bellerin didn't want to do either. That doesn't give you a platform to build. And if he tried to step up and try to get on the ball and play a bit more football, and then they'd overload Bellerin 2-on-1, then it would be Ozil's fault for not defending. I think sometimes he can't win. We do look, and again, I'm not trying to defend him because he wasn't good, but you have to look at the in-game situation. So I think it was a combination of the system, the position some of the players were playing in. As I said, I get the feeling that Ramsey was shoehorned in when he really shouldn't have been due to fitness. System, fitness of a few players, and City being a fucking good team.
Yeah, okay. I have to agree. Okay, righto. I think we're going to wrap it, boys. It's been a real pleasure. Before we go, though, I'm just going to get a quick prediction next week. Tony? Chelsea.
10-0.
10-0. Come on, give us a prediction.
I did, 10-0.
Schwinn?
I'm going to go for an Arsenal win, 2-1.
I'm going to go for an Arsenal win, 1-0. Okay, righto,
Classic
boys.
Arsenal.
Yeah. Thanks again.
You've got Gooners against Leukemia Cancer.
Yeah, sorry. I better just touch quickly. Our friends at Gooners in the USA, they're actually raising some funds for cancer, Gooners in cancer or something, Schwinn? I didn't write the website down.
Yeah, that's goonersversuscancer.com.
Goonersversuscancer.com. So you can go there and donate some money, and it all goes to a good cause. So as many Gooners as can get onto that, and the boys are doing a good job. Mike and Andy from Gooners in the USA. Okay, boys, is that it? Any more?
Yeah.
Yep. No. All good.
Righto. Thanks again. We'll speak to you all next week after we beat Chelsea. See ya.
Bye-bye.